It didn't matter if you were of the white race, the black race, the brown race, or whatever. So social issues I try to get in the background or underlaying a plot, but never to the point of letting it interfere with the story or hitting the reader over the head.
The X-Men are one of the most recognizable groups of characters in literature history. They've gotten more adaptations than I can count, but in the live-action area, they leave something to be desired. The X-Men and the mutants as a whole is an incredible gateway to telling stories that show a mirror image of our own world. A story of representation, segregation, family, love, hope, and companionship. The X-Men are different from us for many reasons, but they're also the best of us, the most flawed of us. I've written a Daredevil trilogy in the past, and I've been meaning to get around to the X-Men for even longer. I've been trying to figure out which lineup of characters I want to use and which stories to tell and how I want to tell those, but I think I've finally figured it out. The previous X-Men movies have ranged from great to less than great. I'm not saying I can do better, but I do think I can give a more accurate representation of these characters and highlight what fans love about them to really show why these characters have been pop culture icons for decades. Now, I originally wanted to pitch a trilogy, but I think I can condense everything I wanted to say down into one fantastic movie. Shave off the unnecessary details and really make a movie packed with everything we love to see. Every single one of these characters have more than enough story potential within them to warrant solo movies on their own, so we need to be able to do them justice in one singular film. So which characters will we be using in this movie? Well, the main team will consist of 7 members, then the addition of Professor X and the antagonist of the movie, Mr. Sinister. The first and most important character of this movie needs to be Cyclops, with Jean Grey following after in importance. There is a lot to Scott Summers that people don't understand. The movies made him seem second fiddle to Wolverine, and it never should be that way. Scott has more depth than anyone on that team. He deals with the crushing weight of expectation placed upon him by Xavier and the rest of the team. He's the leader. He's strong-willed and level-headed. He's a tactical genius, always coming up with plans on the battlefield. There's so much more I could get into, but that would take all day. With that out of the way, let me run you through everyone else on the roster. I'll be using Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Rogue, Gambit, Storm, and Beast. Let me run you through the castings quickly. For Cyclops, I'll be choosing Richard Madden. I'm not extremely sold on him, but you could pick anybody who gives off the same energy as him and it would work just as well. Jean Grey will be played by Jane Levy from the 2013 remake of Evil Dead and Don't Breathe. She has the warm energy that we're looking for, as well as being powerful and tormented by that power. Taron Egerton will be Wolverine because he deserves it. He has so much range, and he would be an incredible Logan. He's shorter than Richard Madden too, although not by much, but that's an important fact. Rogue will be played by Diana Silvers. She has the youthful energy needed, and she can be a good way to introduce this team of X-Men in a similar way the original film did back in 2000. Austin Butler is the perfect Gambit. He's got the charm, the attitude, the ability to do difficult accents, and the physical look. I don't even need to explain this. He is Gambit. For Storm, we need someone who has a powerful presence. That's why I believe Anna Diop would crush this. She's already played a powerful superhero in a team of odd ones when she was Starfire and Titans, but she was really miscast in that role, and I think she deserves another chance at a popular character like this. These next 2 castings, I'd like to give credit to Superframe for these, because they were the absolute perfect choices and I couldn't have found better if I tried. That would be Jeffrey Wright for Beast and Ralph Fiennes for Professor X. Christian Bale is Mr. Sinister. Gore the God Butcher was an extreme waste of a character, but it showed that Christian Bale is interested in playing comic book villains. Mr. Sinister is campy and having fun doing these inhumane acts, but he's also able to flip it like a switch and become the most menacing and threatening person in the room. Now, with all this set in place, let's get into how I would make an X-Men movie. The movie begins in your face. We see a team of mutants infiltrating a laboratory in the jungle. In front, we see Cyclops. We get to see how he commands the situation and leads the team in the field. Behind him, Jean Grey and Iceman follow. They stealthily move through the walls, avoiding security. Cyclops reaches for his earpiece and asks if it's ready yet. We then see Beast inside of the Blackbird, located a ways outside of the laboratory. Beast replies, telling him that it's almost done. Also on the earpiece is Professor X. He reminds Cyclops why they're there, and they need to bring the target alive. Cyclops tells Charles that's what Beast is handling. They can't get the target without the piece of technology that Hank is working on. We then hear another voice over the comms. Flying high above the laboratory is Angel, keeping an eye on the exterior. He tells Cyclops, Jean, and Iceman to watch their backs. Just as he says this, the door opens and the crew is spotted. Before the troops can fire, Jean uses her mind control and commands them to leave and forget they were there. The guards turn around and exit the way they came. The team continues on until eventually they reach a massive room with lab equipment everywhere. They investigate further before they find something horrible. Rows and rows of what appear to be jail cells with a large array of mutants in them. They all look monstrous and horrific. Iceman tells Cyclops that they need to help these people. Cyclops tells Iceman that they came for a specific person. Beast looks on the monitor to see everything that the team inside is seeing, and he's horrified. It shakes him to his core. Jean tells Cyclops that if they need help, then it's the X-Men's responsibility to help them. Charles agrees with Jean over the comms. Cyclops takes a moment to think. He tells Beast to try hacking into the doors and open them. He continues down the hallway with Jean and Iceman until Angel comes over the comms once more. His voice is static due to the reception of the lower levels of the lab they're in. Cyclops tells him to keep a sharp eye out, but they're spotted by one they came for. A tall man with a long cape and heavy armor stands in front of them. His eyes glow a piercing red and his teeth are like razors. The target they were after was Mr. Sinister, the evil mutant scientist. Outside, a massive wave of troops approach the entrance of the building. They position outside and block the escape. Angel sees this and swoops down to attack. Back inside, we get our first hints of who Mr. Sinister is as a character. He loves what he does. He taunts the X-Men by showing them how he views his test subjects, as disposable experiments. A fight ensues and Mr. Sinister is able to hold his own against the 3 heroic mutants. His telekinesis, regeneration, and energy blasts make him a formidable foe. Mr. Sinister is able to knock Iceman unconscious, but he's overwhelmed by Cyclops and Jean's powers when used in tangent with one another. Cyclops and Jean are able to knock down Mr. Sinister just enough for Cyclops to order a retreat. They grab Iceman and escape. As they pass by the cells, the doors open and the captive mutants are able to escape. Outside, Beast notices Angel fighting the horde of troopers. He rushes out there and joins the fight. His way of fighting isn't primal or animalistic as his appearance may imply. He uses gadgets and punches mixed with his big leaps and thick, durable skin for protection. When the rest of the team gets outside, they join in on the battle. Cyclops gives Iceman to Beast and tells him to get to the med bay on the Blackbird. Cyclops and Jean help Angel dispatch the troopers. Just then, the group of captive mutants come rushing out of the doors. Beast directs them to follow him and they all board the plane. Cyclops, Jean, and Angel notice everyone is on board safely, so they all make a run for the plane. After they get on, the jet takes off and leaves the area. Mr. Sinister exits the laboratory and watches as the Blackbird flies away. He grins, clearly taking an interest in Cyclops and Jean. And that's the opening. I know, very in-depth, but I wanted to highlight some important things about these characters to show Jean's mindset and the way of being the warm voice in Cyclops' mind. I wanted to highlight Beast's caring and intelligent nature, how he chooses to not give in to his primal instinct. He'll choose combat to help his friends, but won't seek out a fight. However, the most important thing about this scene was showing Cyclops' mentality. He was faced with a choice: stick to the mission and capture Mr. Sinister, or go off-plan and rescue the mutants, even though that meant Sinister would be aware of their presence. Even with Mr. Sinister, we've established his driving force for the rest of the movie. The next scene would make a tonal shift. 5 years later, we see the inside of a college dorm room. Posters, plants, candles, and clothes line the room. The room is silent, but we hear distraught voices in the distance as we are introduced to Anna Marie. She's a young woman just over 20. Mascara runs from her eyes as tears decorate her cheeks. She stares at her hands, shaking. The camera pans down and we see a man the same age as her lying on the ground unconscious. Unable to conjure words, she runs. She's helpless and she's scared. That night we see Anna navigating through Caldecott County, Mississippi. As she walks through the pouring rain, still clearly shaken, we hear a man's voice in the distance. Anna's immediately alarmed and she looks around. The man steps out to reveal himself. He wears a long brown coat over a purple vest. He smirks in a smug, almost flirtatious way. Then the Blackbird emerges from the sky above and lands behind Anna. She turns around, still on edge. The door opens up and a tall woman dressed in white steps out. The woman extends a comforting hand to the poor girl. "You're not alone. None of us are." We've just been introduced to Rogue, Gambit, and Storm. Anna just gained her powers and she's terrified of them. She's the new recruit on the team, and we'll get to see her grow from a scared outcast to a brave and powerful hero. Gambit means well, but he can't help himself but make himself seem like the party guy. The one who's always ready to make a slick remark even if the situation doesn't call for one. Then there's Storm. She's willing to help this young girl immediately. Perhaps this is because she sees herself in Anna, a young woman who was arguably cursed with abilities, and they can do more harm than healing if used without proper training. After this, we arrive at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, also known as X-Mansion. This is where we get our formal introductions to everyone. We get to meet all of our main players in the story and we understand who they are more clearly. We need to remember that this isn't connected to any cinematic universe, so this is our first introduction to these renditions of these characters. Now in Xavier's office, this is where the professor explains to Anna what the school is. Jean then offers to show Anna to her room and takes her out of the office. From here, we're introduced to Mr. Sinister once more. After these past few years, Sinister has taken up a new base of operations. He resides on an island in the South Pacific where he conducts his experiments. As the camera pans out to reveal the rest of the island, we see that he populates the island with hundreds of Mr. Sinister clones. Once the X-Men is formed, Sinister made it his mission to continue his experiments with its members until he's able to transfer all of their powers to himself, rendering him the ultimate mutant. And it just so happens that a mutant with the power to take others' abilities has just surfaced. This causes Mr. Sinister to engage directly with the X-Men once more. He needs Anna. I think the next few scenes should be ones of character building. We get to see more of the school through the eyes of Anna. That's when Jean sits her down and has a heart-to-heart with her. In a warm, motherly tone, Jean explains that she understands how this is a lot. She was there too. They all were. Every single mutant roaming in these halls has, in one way or another, been right where Anna is at this very moment. Jumping back to the X-Men, Charles and Scott talk. From here, we learn that Charles sends a mutant operative back to the laboratory they invaded 5 years ago to see if there could be any sign of Mr. Sinister being there or a clue as to where he's gone. However, it's been a few days and there hasn't been any communication with the operative. Charles tells Scott he thinks it's best to prepare the X-Men for a rescue mission. Scott understands and he leaves the room. We then get to see Scott gathering up all the X-Men we'll be following on this mission. He brings Jean, Storm, Gambit, and Beast. Later that night, the team lands back on the island. When they do, they all head outside except for Beast, who stays on the Blackbird. What the hell are you bubs doing here? The team lets their guard down. Cyclops steps forward. So this is where you've been. Wolverine approaches the group. Then he notices Jean. He looks at her, and there's clearly something between them. Jean breaks their silence. Well, we're glad you're alright, Logan. The professor lost communication with you a few days ago. Logan tells them that he turned off the comms so he could focus. He can't stand having someone in his ear telling him what to do. While they're scoping out the abandoned laboratory, we have a chance to delve into the subtleties of our core team. We get hints of the love triangle with Scott, Jean, and Logan. We see that Wolverine isn't good with taking orders, especially from Scott. We see Gambit's chill nature and how serious he can really take things. While they walk through the corridors in dingy spaces, we also get to see Storm's claustrophobia kick in. Cyclops orders Jean to take Storm back up to the surface. As they begin heading to the surface, the doors close and lock from the outside. Through the overhead speakers, Mr. Sinister's voice can be heard. He monologues for a moment about how he was interested in Cyclops and Jean, but with the arrival of the new mutant girl, he doesn't need them anymore. Just then, clones of Sinister fill the room, ready to kill the X-Men. This is our first fight with our main group of characters. This is an incredibly important moment for the story. Unlike the Avengers or the Justice League, the X-Men don't need to learn how to work with one another. They're a family and they know one another through and through. This fight will instead focus more heavily on what they're willing to do for one another, how they're willing to die to help their friends. Back at the mansion, Mr. Sinister strikes. He invades the school looking for Anna. As this happens, Professor X manages to get Anna to a safe place while Angel and Iceman help the other children. I think it would be cool if we took a bit of a horror angle for this scene. We could have Mr. Sinister and his clones walking through the dark hallways of the school. We'll occasionally have mutants attack Mr. Sinister, but they'll easily be dealt with. One attempt is different though. Angel and Iceman grab him, and using an icicle, Iceman stabs Mr. Sinister through the neck and he dies. I think part of the reason Mr. Sinister can be such a terrifying threat is that you can't kill him very easily. Whenever you kill him, his consciousness is transferred to one of his clones, rendering him immortal as long as he has living clones on Earth. The clone, now with Mr. Sinister's mind and powers, attacks Iceman and Angel. He almost wins until Professor X enters the hallway. He attempts to mind control Mr. Sinister, but it doesn't work. Somehow, the villain has found a way to counter mind control abilities. Mr. Sinister grabs Professor X out of his chair and picks him up by the neck. He demands to know where the girl is, but Charles won't break. Just then, a noise can be heard from the roof. Mr. Sinister grins and drops Charles to the floor. He and his clones then head to the roof. Back in the laboratory, the team manages to defeat all of the clones. They're about to leave, but Wolverine notices something. Coordinates for somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Cyclops takes them and tucks them away. As they get to the Blackbird, Beast is listening to a distress signal from Charles. Cyclops realizes it was all a setup. The team then takes off full speed back to the mansion. Anna stands atop the roof. She tries to find somewhere to go, but there's nowhere. She's trapped. Mr. Sinister reaches the roof and he looks at her as he tells her to come with him. Anna's frightened as anyone would be. She's unable to figure out where to go. Living or deceased, I can work with either one. Make your choice, girl. Anna refuses to go with him, so he fires an energy blast at her, blasting a hole in the building, throwing her from the roof. Mr. Sinister fires again, and Anna flies off, narrowly escaping with her life. Later, the X-Men arrive to find the mansion on fire with a large hole in the side as students and faculty escape. The Blackbird lands, and the X-Men exit the plane. They find the professor being helped by Angel and Iceman. Scott questions if Sinister escaped, and Charles tells him that they did the best they could. Jean asks if anyone was hurt, and Angel says that there were injuries, but nothing was fatal. Everyone's okay. Charles tells Scott that Anna's missing, but Mr. Sinister doesn't have her yet. They need to find her before Sinister does. And now we enter the third act. I think a lot of comic book movies fall flat with their final acts because they have a disposable army with a sky beam and call it a day. However, the finale needs character. It needs emotional stakes. Before I explain the finale though, let me recap where all of our characters are in the story. Starting with Scott, he feels the obligation to lead this team. It's been his driving force throughout the whole movie, but leading his team into Sinister's trap hurt his confidence. He knows his morals and ideals, but he can't help but take responsibility for not seeing the signs before he almost got his friends killed. With Jean, the connection she made with Anna earlier will be her driving force in this movie. We'll get to see how Anna going missing affects her. Not only that, but things get more complicated when Logan shows up again. She needs to keep things professional while also acting as a role model for the team. Storm is also in an interesting position. While she hasn't gotten the most character development in the story, I'm structuring this movie to act as the beginning of a larger story. Her, Gambit, and Wolverine will have bigger parts in movies to come. Alright, time for the beginning of the end. The third act begins with Professor X using Cerebro to locate Anna. He finds her in Mississippi trying to return home. Scott makes a plan. Anna's gone rogue. Jean, Storm, Gambit, you three will take the Blackbird and find her. She needs our help. Gambit then makes a point. You ever considered that maybe she doesn't want our help? Cyclops is about to speak, but Charles interrupts him. If a young mutant is in need of help, it is our obligation to help that young mutant even if they don't realize how much they need it. With that, the A team heads off to find Anna. The B team is made up of Charles, Scott, Hank, and Logan. Hank asks what they're supposed to do, and Scott looks to Charles. We need to see an old friend. We cut back to Mississippi. We're in Caldecott County once again. Anna approaches a house in the middle of a field. As she walks up the steps to the front porch, she reaches for the door. She takes a deep breath and raises her hand, then knocks. After a moment, the door opens. A man, somewhere in his 50s, stands there. A look of shock overcomes his face. His eyes tear up and he calls out a woman's name. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad," Anna says quietly, almost shamefully. Her parents both rush in for a hug, but Anna steps back. "Don't. I can't hurt you. Come on inside." Next, we're in Poland. Charles, Scott, Logan, and Hank approach a dimly lit cabin in the woods. The team heads in, and they're greeted by a man sitting in a chair by the fireplace. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Logan chimes in. "There is no pleasure. We need something from you." "Quiet, Logan," Scott demands. "We need your help, Eric." The man once known as Magneto leans forward. "You're desperate, old friend." What has the great Professor X fearful? Nathaniel Essex. He's returned. We wouldn't be here unless absolutely necessary. Eric leans back. "Why now? What's changed?" "There's a girl, a young mutant. Her powers are dangerous, abilities that can nullify any mutant. Essex wants to get his hands on those powers. There was a time where I wouldn't have helped you in this situation, but Mr. Sinister is a different kind of monster. I wouldn't wish him upon my worst enemy. His methods have gotten worse. He's more vile than ever before. We don't know how to stop him. And you believe I can assist? You're our best chance at stopping him." Eric thinks for a moment. "Alright then. He's a man playing God, a man playing mutant. You can exploit this. Figure out how." Charles thanks Eric, and they turn to leave. Eric stops them. "And one last thing before you go," he says. "Don't let that girl become a problem. If she does, I'll step in." Inside the home of Anna's parents, they sit in the living room. As the conversation continues, we build to a climax, a shift tone. The moment Anna mentions the word mutant, the world goes cold. "My daughter? A mutant?" Anna looks up. "I'm sorry. My daughter? One of those things? Was it one of those mutants you were around? Did they infect you?" "It's not like that. It's not how it works. My daughter is no mutant, and until you can fix that, you are not my daughter." Anna can't speak. She doesn't know what to say. "Get out of my house. You are not welcome here." As if on cue, the Blackbird is heard outside. Anna walks out the front door and is greeted by Storm, Jean, and Gambit. Gambit takes his coat and wraps it around Anna as he leads her to the plane with Jean. Anna looks up at him, then leans her head onto his shoulder as they walk. Storm looks inside of the house. She's heartbroken. A single tear falls from her eye and she wipes it away. "You should be ashamed of yourselves." With that, she exits the house. Back at the mansion, the team gears up for the final battle. As they make a strategy for how they're going to capture Mr. Sinister, Anna insists on going with them. Scott immediately tells her that she can't, but Anna puts her foot down. She's going to be a part of this. She's all in. With that, we get a suit-up montage. Yes, I know they're corny, but they're so cool and we need to bring those back. There's ways to make them not corny. Just look at like the suit-up scenes from Iron Man. The final battle takes place on Mr. Sinister's island. When they land, their goal is to make their way to Sinister without being seen by the hundreds of clones. They eventually reach this grand hall, looking like a sort of throne room, with Mr. Sinister on that very throne. Mr. Sinister cues in his clones. He doesn't send the whole army, but enough to make the team sweat. Cyclops makes a decision. He tells Storm and Jean to follow him after Sinister. The rest of the team is to stay back and not let the clones interfere. Rogue flies around the room, punching the clones and kicking them from above, while Gambit uses playing cards and other objects around him as explosives for crowd control. As for Wolverine and Beast, they tear through the clones like animals. This battle rages on as Cyclops, Jean, and Storm fight Mr. Sinister. He taunts them and plays on their morals, their emotions. The more he talks, the angrier the three get. He speaks of the horrible things he's done to mutants and what horrible things he's going to do to Rogue when he gets his hands on her. This causes Jean and Storm to work in unison with the full power as Cyclops hits him with his optic beam. All of this power combined is enough to kill Mr. Sinister, but as we know, this won't matter. His consciousness is transferred to a clone that enters the room to continue the fight. After a while of fighting, it seems like there's no hope. Everyone is tired and losing motivation. They can't kill him, and he seems to have an endless supply of clones at his disposal. Right as they're about to go down, Cyclops gets an idea. Cyclops reaches for his comms. "Beast, how far are we from the mainland?" Beast takes a moment to calculate, then replies, "Somewhere between 750 to 1,000 miles, why do you ask?" Cyclops turns back to Storm. "How big of a hurricane can you create?" Cyclops uses his comms to tell everyone to retreat. They all do so as Storm flies out of the building and high above the island. The team regroups at the Blackbird, and to do a head count, they make sure everyone's there. Someone's missing. They look back into the throne room to see Wolverine still slicing away, barely winded. Cyclops demands him to get back to the plane, and Wolverine hesitates. He gives in though and gets to the Blackbird. Soon enough, a hurricane, bigger than the island itself, completely overtakes the landmass and submerges everything and everyone on it into the deep depths of the ocean. Storm flies above the wreckage and a receding tropical storm. She breathes, taking a moment, before heading back with the X-Men. 1 week later, the X-Men all sit in front of the school. It's under reconstruction and will continue to be for the next few months. The team is together once again, and we can feel the familial bond between them. There's something beautiful with this group of outcasts finding themselves in each other, finding what makes them who they are. We close on the sign outside of the school, Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. We hold on the X as we fade to black.
If there is something that you feel is good, something you want to do, something that means something to you, try to do it. Because I think you can only do your best work if you're doing what you want to do, and if you're doing it the way you think it should be done, and if you can take pride in it after you've done it.
Spider-Man is arguably the most popular character ever created. He's had 8 live-action movies, 2 banger animated ones, and 1 million comics, TV shows, and games. Everyone knows who Spider-Man is.
It rides up in the crotch a little bit, too.
In a hypothetical world where I was given the reins of this character, I would create my Spider-Man trilogy, one that stays accurate to the comics while evolving the mythos into something new and exciting for us fans to love. Something that can inspire hope and kindness within all of us while thrilling us with high-octane action. The story should have a lighter tone while also not being afraid to tap into more serious and mature themes. We need a trilogy that's endearing and full of heart while also putting on full display everything Spider-Man stands for and represents. His humility, his power and his weakness, his struggles, his triumphs, and his responsibilities. I understand that everyone has their favorite Spider-Man. I also understand that whichever Spider-Man is your favorite will always be your favorite, and most of you are dead set on that. But I do want to try and give us another version of the character that we can all agree is up there among the best. The first movie will simply be titled Spider-Man Part 1. The main villain will be Kraven the Hunter alongside Sandman. Kraven is hunting down Spider-Man as he believes that the spider is the ultimate prey. I know it's simple, but Kraven is a pretty simple guy. While Kraven's hunt goes on, he manipulates Flint Marko into joining up with him, but we all know Kraven, he has other things in mind. He's going to use Sandman to lure out Spider-Man and set a trap. Spider-Man has been done to death, so the question is, how can we make this version stand out from what we've seen before? I think the best way to do that is by placing him in college. He isn't in high school anymore. He has more responsibility. He's looking into apartments, he's looking for jobs, and he's trying to figure out where he's going. Peter's connection to his friends and family is going to be essential for this trilogy. Gwen and Harry will be the most important among the others, but at the same time, Peter's connection to his Aunt May is incredibly important to these 3 films. With Gwen, we get to see how much Peter cares for her and how they've been together since high school. They make an incredible team, and these two are meant for each other. Harry wasn't smart enough to get into Empire State University, but with a father like Norman Osborn, anything is possible. Harry doesn't feel like he belongs at that school, and he feels resentment towards his father, not wanting to be carried through life by his wealth that wasn't his. He wants to distance himself from Norman, but he also craves his approval. Peter Parker's life is defined by tragedy and how he picks himself up after disaster. We're setting up all these relationships with Gwen, Harry, May, and Norman so we can eventually give Peter that tragedy, the tragedy that keeps him moving forward as a man, as a Spider-Man. The finale of the first movie has two parts, the first one being the spectacle. The way Peter approaches the fight is black and white. He sees a monster hurting people. He sees the Sandman. As this fight progresses, Peter realizes that it isn't as black and white as he initially thought. Flint is a victim who needs Spider-Man just as much as anyone else. In the meantime, Kraven has figured out Spider-Man's identity and he's on the ESU campus going from dorm to dorm looking for Gwen and Harry in order to hurt Spider-Man emotionally. He needs to get him vulnerable for the kill. After Spider-Man realizes Sandman's rampage was a trap, he rushes back to campus. Kraven finds Gwen and Harry, and on Gwen's side, she knows Kraven. She knows who Peter really is, so this doesn't come as a surprise to her. But on Harry's side though, he's been kept in the dark. Spider-Man manages to narrowly rescue his friends, and he gets them to safety and goes for Kraven. Spider-Man and Kraven brawl, and it's unlike anything seen before. Spider-Man isn't just fighting for himself. With Kraven knowing his identity, Kraven would have gone after everyone Peter cared about. Kraven has experienced his first failure after this fight. His pride tells him his legacy has been stained. Kraven stands up and extends a hand to Spider-Man. The two bloody and broken men shake hands. Kraven gives respect to the one who beat him, and with that, Kraven leaves, heading back to Africa. The movie ends in two parts, the first being with Sandman. We see Spider-Man meet up with Flint and they have a conversation about his daughter. Spider-Man tells him that he's going to try and help, but Sandman tells him that he doesn't want help from others. This is his daughter and he's going to do his best to help her as best he can. The second part is Gwen and Harry. Peter talks with them about the Kraven situation, and this is where Peter finally tells Harry that he's Spider-Man. And Harry is stunned. There's nothing he can say. He's known Peter since childhood, and Peter never told him about this huge secret. He told Gwen about this before him. Harry exits the room, leaving Peter and Gwen alone in the darkness. So what is the best way to create a sequel that not only pushes the narrative forward as well as our characters' relationships and up the stakes? Well, if you watch my Daredevil pitch, you know that there are three kinds of stakes to focus on. The first being external stakes, second being internal stakes, and the third being philosophical stakes. In the first movie, we had the external stakes with Sandman's destruction and Kraven posing a threat to Peter's loved ones. This movie will focus on the philosophical stakes. This movie will challenge the ideas and concepts of Spider-Man that we're all so familiar with. While the first movie had two villains, that aspect is unique to that first movie, as Part 2 and Part 3 both only have a single antagonist, this one being Venom with Harry as the host. While in the last movie there was plenty of development, even if I may not have touched on it in the pitch, but there should be even more in this one. With Gwen, I want to see her relationship with her family get explored. This is also our way of seeing how the police and government view Spider-Man. And Harry's only other relationship should be with his father. We need to see his longing to impress his dad as well as Norman's constant disappointment. Adding depth to Norman is also important though. We should see the disappointment and how it comes from high expectations and a love for his son, even if it's in his own way. I also really want to showcase Aunt May in this movie. We need to show that May is the first person Peter goes to for advice and support. She's been with him his whole life and Peter would be lost without her. She's the heart and soul of the Spider-Man story and that needs to shine through in this movie. This movie will follow the symbiote story. We need to see the deterioration of Peter and Harry's relationship while also delving into Peter's character. Why is he still Spider-Man after all these years if all it does is cause him and the ones he loves pain and suffering? This is the movie where we test these relationships that Peter has made. He pushes them further and further away while having the symbiote until he eventually brings everyone past their breaking point. Gwen is about to break up with him until she realizes why he's been so cruel. However, one person didn't change through this whole thing. Aunt May. She knew something wasn't right, and when Peter breaks free from the symbiote, she's the first one to help pick him back up when he's at his lowest. His relationship with Harry is also completely shattered during this time, so when Peter eventually gets rid of the symbiote, it attaches to Harry and becomes Venom. The symbiote's plan isn't world domination or anything like that, but to use Harry in order to get closer to Peter and keep him as a host once more. This movie will end with the death of two characters, Harry and May. Venom kills May to hurt Peter, and when Spider-Man defeats Venom, Harry dies in the process. This would completely destroy Peter, knowing that he was the indirect cause of the deaths of his aunt and his best friend. Gwen would be there to help him through it, but Peter would go into a state where he wants to give up. He wants to throw the costume away, but that's not who he is. He knows that now more than ever, people need Spider-Man. Alright, we've made it to the final movie of this trilogy. But before I keep going, I just want to remind you to subscribe for more pitch videos and join my Discord server for early access to information on upcoming projects and talk to me directly. Great community over there and we'd love to have you. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Spider-Man Part 3 will tie up all of our loose ends and bring the character arcs to a close. This movie needs to be the most personal to Peter in order to wrap up his character arc. After the events of Part 2, Spider-Man is at an all-time low. Both May and Harry are gone. This movie will hinge on the question of what happens when Spider-Man fails to protect those he loves. This movie has some things it needs to accomplish. It needs to bring the relationship between Peter and Gwen to its climax and deal with the ramifications of all Peter's past actions. The villain of this movie would be Green Goblin. This is what we've been building towards over these movies, with Harry's death being the catalyst for Norman's breaking point. Norman becomes obsessed over the death of his son and believes that Spider-Man was the cause of it. From there, he puts his money, time, and resources into identifying the man behind the mask. Norman discovers the true identity of Spider-Man and it all makes sense. Why was Harry wrapped up in what happened with Kraven and Venom? Why did he suddenly stop talking to Peter? This was it. Up until this point, Peter hasn't been able to accept the loss of Aunt May. He thought he'd be prepared for it after what happened with Uncle Ben, but nothing can prepare you for the loss of a loved one. The finale of this movie takes place on the Brooklyn Bridge. Spider-Man fights Green Goblin as the villain tries to kill him. Norman uses civilian lives as toys, screaming at Spider-Man. He questions why Peter will risk his life to save these strangers, but not Harry. Peter tries to explain that Harry was killed by the symbiote, but he was trying to save him. Norman doesn't believe him, of course, and in a turn of events, he notices Gwen on the bridge. He grabs Gwen and takes her to the top. Spider-Man swings and climbs as fast as he can to reach the top, but before he can get there, the Goblin throws Gwen from the top of the bridge. Peter leaps after her, and time seems to slow. Adrenaline pumps through his veins and he shoots a web to catch her. He leaps from falling pieces of the bridge and reaches out his hand for Gwen until Gwen opens her eyes and she's underneath the bridge in Spider-Man's arms. He did it. He saved Gwen Stacy. Okay, put your pitchforks down, you nerds. The death of Gwen Stacy is physically impossible to make significant again. It was done in the comics, and it was a massive shock because it had never been done before. Then The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did it and introduced it to the general audience, and then Spider-Man Lotus tried it, and you know.
You don't care about people like me and Gwen. She didn't live life like it was a constant game. Maybe if you took a second to think.
But building to the death of Gwen Stacy, then having Peter actually succeed in saving her? Spider-Man sets Gwen on a passing boat and tells her to get to a safe place, then he leaps back into the fight with Green Goblin. It's a battle for the ages. It's personal, bombastic, and thrilling. The battle ends with Spider-Man defeating Norman by causing his glider to malfunction and explode, then engaging in a fistfight on the destroyed bridge wreckage. Spider-Man defeats Green Goblin and Norman is taken to jail. The finale of this movie doesn't end with a swing. It ends with Peter meeting back with Gwen later that night. They talk about Harry and May and Norman and all the loss they've endured. The movie closes out with Peter letting others back in as he has dinner with Gwen and the rest of her family. With Daredevil Born Again on the horizon, I decided to take a look back at the two live-action versions of Daredevil, one of which being one of the worst pieces of superhero media, and the other being one of the best.
Who are you? I'm Daredevil.
I want to write a series of Daredevil movies that encapsulates everything that makes Matt Murdock such a compelling character. Someone who struggles with his identity, religion, and his purpose. Make something unique, yet also stays true to the nature of the character built up in previous forms, comics and all. I want a story with a dark tone, whereas a character like Moon Knight should be paired with the movies in the style of Stanley Kubrick. Daredevil would be a character in the vein of David Fincher. We need a movie that not only challenges Matt Murdock himself, but also us as the audience, to change what we know about Daredevil and expand upon it. A true character study of a broken man torn between the light and the dark. We need a movie that's comic accurate with the characterization of these icons, but also one with a grimy feel of Hell's Kitchen. If Queens is the place where a character of hope like Spider-Man operates, what's the opposite? The corrupt place where a character who evokes fear would operate. Where does the devil go when he's out for vengeance? Getting it out of the way now, Charlie Cox was a perfect Daredevil. He still is the perfect Daredevil, and I truly don't think anybody can replace him. He has a deep love for the character and truly understands every aspect of the blind lawyer. The characterization of everyone, not just Matt, is vital to telling a good Daredevil story. Foggy Nelson, Karen Page, Ben Urich, and Becky Blake are all important characters with their own lives, personalities, and depth. They aren't just there to service Matt. I know it's been stated countless times in the past about cities like Gotham and Metropolis, but Hell's Kitchen also should feel like its own character. We should see how the public views vigilantes. their vigilante, their guardian angel, the devil himself. Casting these movies is going to be a challenge. Each character needs to be played to perfection in order to give the necessary personality and depth. For Foggy Nelson, I think Jesse Plemons would make this role his own. He could bring a caring and charming presence to this role. In the series Love and Death, he plays a character similar to Foggy in a lot of ways.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Are you sure?
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
With Karen Page, we need somebody who can play warmth, but also determination. Allison Williams is a great choice for this. Even with performances where she plays a more antagonistic role in a movie like Get Out, she has moments of Karen in there.
You know I can't give you the keys, right, babe?
Elektra could be played to perfection by popular fan cast Ana de Armas. I know she's fan casted in a lot of roles, but I think the only two that really fit her are Catwoman and Elektra. She has that edge that's needed, and she isn't afraid to do action movies. She can bring that double-sidedness that's needed to play an assassin. Wilson Fisk is tough to cast. Vincent D'Onofrio played this role with absolute perfection, and I believe that he, alongside Charlie Cox, are impossible to recast. However, I'll do my best. Glenn Fleshner or Dean Norris could both be fantastic choices. However, for the sake of the edit, I'm gonna go with Dean Norris. The Kingpin is a role that would be more difficult to play, a cold and calculated murderer that also could be sympathetic and misunderstood, someone who's always 3 steps ahead and knows our protagonist's every move.
All along it was you! You son of a bitch. You drove into traffic to keep me from that laundry.
Now for the big one, Daredevil. I think there's a very simple answer to this, but let me talk about some other choices for a moment. Someone like Richard Madden could be a good pick. He's versatile and he's done big franchises before. Or even somebody like Ryan Gosling I think could work. A bit of a less grim story. However, I think that the only actor who could take on this role in my trilogy would be Robert Pattinson. I mean, you combine The Lighthouse, The Batman, and Tenet, and he's already given us his audition tape. He could bring a new feeling alongside from Charlie Cox to do something different, yet faithful, a breath of fresh air in an increasingly toxic industry.
Just save the world. Can't leave anything to chance. What's happened's happened. Which is an expression of faith in the mechanics of the world. It's not an excuse to do nothing. Call it what you want.
What do you call it?
Reality.
The rest of the castings don't need as much detail, but I'll briefly cover them. For Ben Urich, I've chosen Keith David. For Becky Blake, I'm going with Daisy Edgar Jones. Punisher is going to be played by Carl Urban. Bullseye, I'll be choosing James McAvoy. And finally, Cillian Murphy is Purple Man. Okay, now for the movies themselves. I'll be running you through each movie and how they connect with one another to create a coherent trilogy. The first movie will be titled The Daredevil. This title works well to start off with because, like The Batman, this will be the definitive version of these characters, the Daredevil. The movie's main villain will be the Punisher, with Wilson Fisk as an antagonist as well. Punisher is starting a one-man war on crime after seeing Daredevil's methods be ineffective. As Punisher's war rages on, Fisk is running for the mayor of New York City. He's going to be using Punisher's war as a springboard for his campaign, swearing to get crime under control and outlaw vigilantes entirely. Fisk will be seen as a hero to the public. He won't be a direct villain in this movie, but will be a dark shadow looming over the entire movie and being set up as the main threat for the end of the trilogy itself. I want this movie to highlight aspects of Matt Murdock that the general public isn't familiar with. As great as the Netflix show may have been, it didn't have the highest viewership of all time. Even most superhero fans I know say they haven't seen it. We need to see how strong of a connection Matt has with Foggy, Karen, and Becky. We need to see their lives as well as Matt's. They need to be built up in this movie and the next one so that they can be torn down in the finale. We need to see how Matt struggles with balancing being a lawyer and being a vigilante, how he struggles to convince himself that what he does as Daredevil is separate from who he is as a person, a man of faith. How does becoming the devil strain his beliefs? The finale of the first movie should showcase a fight between Daredevil and the Punisher. This wouldn't be a battle between who's the stronger man physically, but a battle of ideologies. What makes a hero? What makes a villain? Is good and evil as simple as black and white, or is there a gray area? The movie can end with Daredevil defeating Punisher, only to find out that most of the people in Hell's Kitchen were on Punisher's side all along. They've been dealing with corruption and crime for so long, they would do anything to eradicate it, even if that means backing a psychopath. This turns the public against Daredevil, where Fisk can step in and swear to bring down the devil if he's elected, only further adding fuel to his campaign. So how do we create a sequel that puts our characters in positions that create new ways to challenge their morals? We take what's come before and we flip it. We use what our characters learned against them. Matt learns that the law isn't working the same way it used to now that Wilson Fisk has won the election. Corruption spreads like wildfire and the police all across New York City are under Fisk's payroll. Matt, Foggy, and Karen are all backed into a corner that they can't escape from. This story shouldn't up the external stakes, but the moral ones. This movie should challenge Daredevil on his no-kill rule, which he fought for in the first movie. It should make him question if that's the right way to go about things. Daredevil needs to be taken to his darkest place, a place so low he doesn't know if he can escape from it. This is the movie where we begin to see the relationships between Matt, Foggy, and Karen deteriorate. Matt becomes obsessed with being Daredevil and he begins to act cold to his friends. He can't separate himself from what he's become. This movie will be called Mind of the Daredevil, not only because we delve into the psyche of Matt Murdock, but also because the villain of this movie is Purple Man, a serial killer who has the power of mind control. Purple Man is hijacking the minds of civilians and forcing them to murder corrupt officials in Hell's Kitchen. They kill police captains, politicians, and more, all working their way up the ladder until they eventually reach Fisk. I want this movie to open on a personal note. We see Becky Blake being controlled by Purple Man as she heads into a hospital. When she arrives, she enters the office of the doctor who saved her life, but had her put in a wheelchair. The doctor who truly could have saved her legs, but he was paid off by Fisk when he found out that Becky was one of the lawyers who helped bust a lot of his men in the past. When she finds the doctor, she shoots him 3 times, killing him. After she's arrested, she has no memory of what happened, but her mind is scrambled. She can't complete sentences, and she's in a constant state of fear. Foggy is hired as Becky's lawyer, but Matt chooses to figure out another way, seeing how the corrupt legal system won't solve this. This gives us a connection between Matt and Purple Man. Purple Man sees himself to be the same as Daredevil, a vigilante solving the issues of Hell's Kitchen. Matt has been affected by Purple Man personally, which gives him reason to break his moral code and kill the serial killer. As the body count rises and the blood spills, Daredevil inches closer and closer, becoming like the Punisher, a man without a code who's willing to trade one life for another. Also on the case is Ben Urich, a reporter investigating these murders. We see Ben talk with Foggy and Karen about Becky, but he struggles to find any leads. As Daredevil also investigates Purple Man, he has a run-in with Ben. After talking, the two make an alliance to help one another catch this maniac. While all this goes down, Fisk makes moves on fully outlawing vigilantism, as well as figuring out who the Purple Man is. What we have now are characters with emotional stakes in the plot, as well as purpose with moving things along. Foggy and Karen have lost a friend and work to keep her out of jail, while also struggling to maintain their friendship with Matt, who grows increasingly distant and harsh. He delves further into the meaning of Daredevil and begins to lose the Murdock part of himself. All at the same time, we now have Daredevil, Ben Urich, and Fisk trying to figure out the identity of Purple Man, the killer who's been murdering government officials and leaving innocent lives permanently ruined in the worst possible way. The villain has a personal grievance against Daredevil when it's revealed that through Punisher's war, his family was killed in the crossfire. If Daredevil would have done what was necessary and killed these criminals, he would have had his loved ones still by his side. I've spelled out this movie a lot for you, but this was completely necessary. It's the bridge between the beginning and the end. It shows the real substance of this 3-part story by delving deep into the minds of each important player in this massive chess game that is Hell's Kitchen. The movie ends with Daredevil and Ben finding out the identity of Purple Man and getting into his apartment. During the fight, Purple Man gets a hold of Ben and forces him to fight Daredevil. In the meantime, Purple Man tries to escape. When Daredevil almost gets Purple Man, he's stopped when he hears a gun click. Daredevil turns around to see Ben holding a gun to his own head. His eyes are glowing a bright purple. Daredevil cries to Purple Man to stop, but he doesn't. Ben pulls the trigger, killing himself in the process. This pushes Daredevil over the edge, and just as he's about to kill Purple Man, the police show up. They tell Daredevil to put his hands in the air, and Daredevil obeys the officers. Purple Man grins at Daredevil and he says one final line: "I win." The fight ends with the police killing Purple Man and Daredevil escaping. The closing imagery is a montage showing that Foggy lost the case and Becky's put into a mental hospital. Matt is trying to process everything that's happened, and Fisk is getting word that Daredevil got away, finally putting the anti-vigilante law into effect. For the finale of the trilogy, the movie is titled Rise of the Daredevil. This movie will be the conclusion to our story and tie up loose ends. This movie will combine what came before with something new. In the first movie, we had the internal stakes with Daredevil and his moral code against the Punisher. The second movie was one of philosophical stakes. It tested Daredevil on what he learned in the first movie. He had his no-kill rule, and that was tested to the extreme. With this movie, we'll see the external stakes. What happens to Hell's Kitchen if Daredevil fails? In the finale, we need to do a few things. We need the dynamic between Matt, Foggy, and Karen to crescendo. With Daredevil and Fisk, we need to wrap up the rivalry. These can both happen organically. For the relationships aspect, Foggy is angry at Matt for not helping with Becky's trial, and Karen is angry at Matt that he's become so cold to them when all they want to do is support and help him. Matt finally tells them what's been really happening. He tells them that he's Daredevil. The room falls silent for a moment. Foggy just stares at his best friend with a look of betrayal on his face. Foggy feels lied to for over a decade. Everything they've done together, all the moments they've shared, they've all been built on lies. Matt's a shell of his former self. Matthew Murdock is gone. Karen tries to stay, but Matt shouts at her to leave. Going back to Fisk, the anti-vigilante law is in full effect. Every officer in Hell's Kitchen has been ordered to shoot to kill on sight if Daredevil is spotted. The public has turned on Fisk. His corruption was exposed and he was impeached from office. Fisk evades being put in prison by paying off judges and lawyers. He returns to Fisk Tower feeling defeated. All he can think about is Daredevil. This man pretending to be a hero when all he's done is put the city in more dangerous states than before. And then he gets an idea. He's gonna kill Daredevil, but he's gonna make him suffer first. And with that, we cut to 6 months later. Matt has been using his original black homemade suit when going out as a vigilante to avoid the attention of being Daredevil. He hasn't had any communication with Foggy or Karen since their argument, and he spends his days wandering the streets looking for trouble. He doesn't practice law anymore. He feels as if God has abandoned Hell's Kitchen, so he's free to let the devil out. One night, Daredevil stops an arms deal run by Fisk's men. When the goons report back to Fisk, the Kingpin realizes that this was Daredevil. He never really went away, he just changed his identity, and he works more secretly. Fisk finally decides that it's time to end Daredevil. He hires the help of a mercenary with the extraordinary ability to turn any item into a weapon. The merc calls himself Bullseye. Fisk hires him to figure out who Daredevil is and make him suffer. He needs Daredevil off the board in order to complete his plan. After a while, Bullseye eventually figures out that Daredevil and Matt Murdock are the same person. He does research into Matt's past, then targets Foggy and Karen. The rest of the movie would be about Matt having to reconnect with his former friends in order to keep them safe. Knowing about Matt's secret life once put them in danger, but now it's the only thing that's protecting them. Towards the middle of Act 2, we're introduced to Elektra. She re-emerges for an unknown reason. Daredevil runs into her, and he questions why she's back. She tells him that one of the Hand's top assassins has gone rogue and began taking jobs as a mercenary. His codename among the Hand was Bullseye. Fisk wants to take control of the Hand and use them to take back his power in Hell's Kitchen. Daredevil dons the classic red suit once more, and he teams up with Elektra to take down Bullseye and Fisk. The philosophical stakes are once again testing Daredevil's no-kill rule, but this time, he's able to overcome the temptation to kill Fisk and Bullseye. He's grown as a person, and he understands the importance of having his friends around, his family. He knows what Daredevil stands for. Daredevil is the darkness before the light, the one to take on the sins of the people in order to show them the light, the good side of Hell's Kitchen. The final battle is climactic. Daredevil and Elektra fight Bullseye. This fight ends with Daredevil and Elektra defeating the mercenary, then Elektra taking him back to the Hand to be dealt with in their own ways. Then, the real finale. Daredevil finally confronts the Kingpin. 3 movies have led to this moment. Their rivalry builds until it reaches a breaking point where both men snap. But there's a difference. Daredevil has something to fight for, people to fight for, a future to fight for. Kingpin fights out of rage. He fights out of spite and revenge, a lust for power. Kingpin is the final test of Daredevil's moral code, the one person who has been causing every problem in Hell's Kitchen for so long. Ending him means ending the corruption in Hell's Kitchen. The underlying theme of this entire trilogy is that if Daredevil can overcome his demons to be better, then we can too. The movie ends with Fisk being defeated and Daredevil making the right choice, the choice of life, the choice to not become what he hates. Matt returns to law and puts Fisk behind bars. Anti-vigilantism law is repealed and the relationship between the 3 friends is repaired. Hell's Kitchen can go on, knowing that they have a guardian angel to look out for them. A guardian angel in the shape of a devil. These movies represent everything I love about Daredevil. A broken man trying his best to figure out who he is. A story of human connection. A story about doing the right thing when it's the hardest thing you can possibly do. While the Netflix series gave us an amazing interpretation of this character, I think it's time we get a mainstream rendition that shows us overcoming our demons is how we move forward and allow ourselves to love again. It seems like every day we get a new update on Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4 in the MCU. Kevin Feige has reportedly been fighting for a more street-level kind of story, but Sony is really wanting to capitalize off the success of No Way Home, so they want more of a multiverse story, which will likely involve them bringing back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. This could mean that we're probably going to get another movie centered around the multiverse, and everybody's sick of that. I think we can all agree that the multiverse has probably run its course, because at this point it's just a tool to allow studios to bring in cheap nostalgia bait with cameos, and this just creates for a very hollow story. So with that in mind, today I'm going to be pitching you what I would do with Spider-Man 4 if Kevin Feige personally approached me and asked me to write this movie. So that's what I'm going to be doing today in this video. So with all of that being said, enjoy my pitch for Spider-Man Identity Crisis. We open in a dark museum. Nothing is visible aside from the safety lights on the ceiling. All is quiet, not a sound can be heard. In the corner, the red light from a security camera turns off. As we pan across the room, we focus on a painting behind a glass case. After a moment, we hear the sound of clicking coming from above. A man dressed in black and white slowly lowers himself inside. He takes the painting and exits the exhibit. Just then, he hears a voice in his ear. "Hardy, did you get that painting yet?" "Yeah, I'm on my way out now. Make sure those cameras stay offline." "Right, just hurry up in there. I've got a bad feeling about this." His voice is cut off and we hear static. Hardy taps his earpiece again, then asks if his partner is still there. From the camera in the corner of the room, the red light flicks on once again. Hardy tries to cover his face, but he hears a noise from behind him. He pulls his gun, whipping around to the source of the noise. Spider-Man creeps out from the shadows and approaches Hardy. Spider-Man lays a vicious right hook into Hardy's nose, breaking it on impact. Hardy falls to the floor, dropping the gun. Spider-Man pins him down and gets close. He looks into the criminal's eyes and tilts his head. This isn't Spider-Man. This is someone else. The imposter Spider-Man takes his web shooter and sprays webs into Hardy's mouth. His lungs have been filled with web fluid. After Hardy goes silent and devoid of life, he looks directly at the camera and walks away from the murder scene. So, right away, we need to establish that this is the beginning of a new trilogy. We need to establish a different tone, and people need to understand that this is the first part of a new trilogy. Last year, I made a video talking about Daredevil and his character, and how a lot of different characters lend themselves to certain directing styles. Daredevil was a character that could really work in a style similar to David Fincher's, while a character like Moon Knight would probably work in something more similar to Stanley Kubrick. I think it could be really cool to see Spider-Man almost come out like an Edgar Wright movie. He was supposed to direct Ant-Man, and while I do think that could have been good, I think his talents are kind of wasted with a character like Ant-Man. I think Spider-Man would really be the place for him to shine, with more inventive action sequences and more stylized swinging. But Edgar Wright's also not afraid to really hone in on very emotional, dramatic moments. With that being said, the comic that I'll be loosely adapting is Spider-Man Identity Crisis, but that seems pretty obvious given the title. In that book, Spider-Man is framed for murder. Now, I know what a lot of you are probably thinking. Isn't this redundant? Because this is exactly what happened at the end of No Way Home and the beginning of... That's the wrong movie. The end of Far From Home, Mysterio framed Spider-Man for murder. And while yes, you are correct, we didn't really get to see that play out. It was just kind of played for laughs and then wrapped up really quick at the beginning of No Way Home. So this movie is really going to showcase what would have happened if Peter had to go out and clear his name. The next morning, we cut to Peter Parker's apartment. It's a mess, and we get a feeling that Peter isn't doing too great. He sits at his desk listening to police scanners while college textbooks sit next to him collecting dust. We begin to understand the state of Peter's mental health. After the spell that Doctor Strange cast, nobody knows who Peter Parker is, and this has started getting to him. It's been 2 years since then, and he's just going through the motions. He's keeping his head down, too afraid to let anyone get close to him. He tells himself that it's to keep others safe, but in reality, he's the one who doesn't want to get close to others. He hears about a carjacking going down a few blocks away from him. He flips out of his chair and puts on his Spider-Man suit that we saw at the end of No Way Home. Just as he opens the window to leave, he gets an email notification from his laptop. He looks at it and sees his professor, Miles Warren, contacting him about missing class and his grades slipping. He thinks about the email for a moment, then looks at the dusty textbooks. He sighs, then leaps from the window, swinging off to stop the crime in progress. When Spider-Man arrives, he sees a man dressed in black attempting to get into a car. When he drops down, something is different. The criminal is scared of him? He's never been a threatening vigilante, so he's curious as to why he's getting a different reaction this time. Please don't kill me. No, I'm not gonna kill you. The criminal drops his crowbar and runs away. What was that? Spider-Man leaves the scene and heads to class. When he arrives, he sits down. As he takes out a cracked laptop, he gets a notification from the Daily Bugle. He clicks on the article to see that Mayor Fisk has officially instituted a law banning all acts of vigilantism. When asked about why, Fisk's team released security footage of the museum robbery that ended in murder from the night before. Watching the video, Peter is left speechless. He has no idea what to think. Who is this guy? Why is he posing as Spider-Man? He can't think straight, and all is made worse when he gets a tap on the shoulder from behind. He takes out his earbuds and turns to see who's there. A young man with red hair leans toward Peter. Looks like that spider guy really was a nut job after all, huh? Peter's confused. Oh, were you a fan? No, I've only seen a couple of videos. I think it's a bad idea, the banning of vigilantes. My dad hates them, but after everything that's happened in the past couple of decades, I say we need them. Yeah, maybe. The student extends a hand to Peter. I'm Harry. Peter Parker. Well, since you tend to come in late almost every day and obviously don't pay much attention, if you need someone to study with, let me know. Peter gives a slight smile, then turns his attention back toward the news article. We're back at the museum from the beginning. It's closed and there's police tape around. Outside there's 2 police cars and officers standing guard. From behind, the guards are knocked unconscious. A slim figure sneaks past the tape and heads inside. When inside, the figure swiftly moves around the room, avoiding security cameras. Leaning forward, we see who this is. Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. She examines the room and looks down at the outline on the floor. The outline of her father's dead body. She then moves down to the floor, still remaining out of view of the cameras. She looks at the outline and a tear falls down her cheek. There's something different in her eyes. Sadness, sure, but it's more complicated than that. Clearly her father and her had a long history. Something convoluted, difficult. Felicia wipes the tear away, and the sadness turns to anger. I think Felicia Hardy is a super interesting character, and she has so much more depth than just Spider-Man's version of Catwoman. Her history with her father is incredibly important, and it's even more so when you realize that the name Black Cat was originally his. I think this could also feel very at home with the story we're trying to tell, where we have Daredevil, ironically, being the angel on Peter's shoulder, and Black Cat being the devil on his other shoulder. Because Daredevil, being the more experienced vigilante, knows what happens when you let that alter ego take over fully. Oh, and also, yes, Black Cat will be played by Sydney Sweeney, and you can't get mad at me because I put out a poll the other day, and like 600 of you guys voted that you guys want Sydney Sweeney as Black Cat. That's what you guys want, that's what the reporters are saying, so just calm down. After this, we find ourselves inside Peter Parker's apartment. He sits alone on his bed, unsure of where to go next. His name is being slammed in the media, and he feels trapped. He went through this before with Mysterio, but this time it's different. He's all alone. Thinking of what happened in No Way Home, Peter knows that even if there was anyone he could ask for help, he can't put anyone in that position again. Just then, his spider sense goes off. Peter looks towards his front door and readies himself for anything. He slowly approaches until he notices something slip under his door. He leans forward and finds a small card. Picking it up, he reads it. He flips it over to see handwritten lettering. We know the truth. 9 p.m. tomorrow. Murdoch? That's the lawyer who helped him get out of the Mysterio case. The spell should have erased everyone's memory of him. That night, Peter finds himself at the offices of Nelson, Murdoch, and Page. He knocks and Foggy answers the door. In the lobby, Peter sits at a desk where he meets Matt and Karen. They discuss Peter's current situation and how they know who he is. Matt explains that when he heard the news of Spider-Man murdering someone, he knew something was off. As Daredevil, he followed Spider-Man to Peter's apartment. He had Karen pull some strings and found out Peter lived in the same apartment that Spider-Man would crawl through the window of. Foggy explains that the firm would be willing to fully represent Peter in court if it gets to that. Matt then adds that for Spider-Man, Daredevil can help him figure out who this mystery killer is. Peter thanks them for the offers, but he can't accept. He really does appreciate their willingness to help, but he can't put them in harm's way. Peter stands and leaves the room. Could've gone worse. Matt, you gotta talk to the kid. He's gonna get himself killed. I know. I will. Okay, so it's no surprise that Daredevil would be in this movie. He's appeared in numerous projects so far, whether that be No Way Home, or She-Hulk, or Echo, but he's also getting his own 2-season television series again. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that he's sticking around for quite a while at this point. And with this being such a street-level story, it's no wonder that he's showing up here, because Daredevil and Spider-Man are one of the most iconic pairings, if not the most iconic pairing in comics. It's important to note that this is taking place after Daredevil Born Again, and no, this isn't taking place with my Doomsday video that I did, which you should go watch. But the only actual MCU project that this is technically following after would be No Way Home and Daredevil Born Again. I feel like having this movie be a team-up of sorts between these two characters would feel like a very natural progression for Peter's character. Not only that, but this also fulfills the weird portion of the contract with Sony where another important MCU character has to make an appearance, so this isn't very far out of the realm of possibility here. Now we're outside of a massive penthouse on a sophisticated terrace overlooking New York City. Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, sits on a bench, watching over the city skyline. From behind, a man approaches. Your payment has been sent to your accounts, Mr. Chameleon. The villain steps towards Fisk, his face encased in a plastic mask. It's here where we learned what happened that night at the museum. Wilson Fisk won the election in Daredevil Born Again, and he's been trying to outlaw vigilantes ever since. When he saw that things weren't happening fast enough, he decided to give the public view on vigilantes a little push. He hired the Chameleon, a faceless killer for hire to impersonate Spider-Man and turn the public against him. Not much is known about Chameleon, but that's how he prefers it. The less people know about him, the easier it is for them to see him as the characters that he plays, in turn making him a deadlier enemy. I don't usually inquire about my employer's reasoning, but I am intrigued as to why I was hired to impersonate the Spider, despite your long history with the Devil. The Devil of Hell's Kitchen and I are on mutual terms at the moment. It wouldn't be right for me to attack him directly. The Kingpin has a moral code now, a sense of honor. Now, as I said, your payment has been transferred to your accounts. Chameleon nods, then turns to leave, but he's stopped. I may have another job for you, though. Who's the target? I hope animal control is on your list of qualifications. I have a stray that needs to be dealt with. Publicly. Am I to return to the role of the Spider? Make it loud. Okay, hold on. Stop typing. I know what you're about to say. Oh, Marvel can't use characters that were already in the Sony movies. I know. But I think I found a loophole. Because you see, in Kraven the Hunter, Chameleon is in it. Kind of. As far as we know, he's just Kraven's brother, and he has his name. No fucking way am I gonna try and pronounce that. But that guy is in this movie, and he doesn't have his name or the backstory or anything like that. He's just a faceless mercenary who goes by the name Chameleon. Okay, we good? Good. Okay, back to the story. Black Cat is on the streets looking for Fisk. She knows Fisk is the one behind her father's death. How does she know this? Well, we get a flashback showing the complicated history between her and her father. Walter's most profitable job was Fisk Tower a few years ago, when Walter stole one of Fisk's most prized pieces of art. This created a feud between the two that would go on until Walter's death. She watches the back garage of Fisk Tower. She examines the area and notices the mass amounts of security. Realizing she won't be able to get to Fisk by herself, she gets an idea. Next, we find Peter standing over Aunt May's gravestone. He thinks about his aunt and tries to figure out what to do. He's convinced himself that if he continues shutting people out and killing off that Parker side of himself, it'll keep other people safe. A familiar voice is heard as Matt stands next to Peter. "I'm sorry for your loss." Peter doesn't respond. "I lost my father when I was younger. He was a boxer." Peter still doesn't respond. "I used to stitch him up after fights. It was morbid, but it was special. It was a bonding thing." "What happened?" "He was supposed to throw a fight, but he knew I was watching, so he won. He won for me. And when he didn't come home that night, I went outside and saw his body in the street. He was shot by the men who blackmailed him. I'm sorry." "It's alright. You know, he didn't want me to fight. The only thing he wanted me to hit were the books. But I know that I'd be making him proud with what I'm doing today." "How do you know?" "Sometimes I have to remind myself why I do this. Remind myself why I keep fighting. And I think it's because of the lessons he taught me." "What were the lessons?" "That when you hit the mat, you gotta get back up, no matter what." Peter looks back at May's grave. "What was the last thing you learned from your aunt?" Peter thinks back to those words. He'll never forget them. "That with great power, there must also come great responsibility." Matt smiles and puts his hand on Peter's shoulder. "It's the people we have to leave behind who push us the furthest." "Where do we start?" "You tell me, Spider-Man." This was supposed to be a turning point for the character. He's finally starting to let other people in, and he's starting with Matt. Matt plays a crucial role in the story because he's the one who shows Peter that it's not okay to shut yourself out and that you need to let other people in and not just wear this mask all the time. And I think this can be a really good theme for the film because it doesn't just apply to these fictional characters, but for us as well. I think that everyone on Earth has that side of them that only they know, that no one else has any idea even exists. It's the you that only comes out when you're alone. And for some, it can always be more of a drastic change than others, but it's still important to recognize that it does exist. I think it's important to not change who you are to try and please everyone else around you, because no one really cares what you do. They all have their own lives to worry about. I kind of went off on a little tangent there, but I do think it is important for everyone to know, but back to the Spider-Man video. Peter, Matt, Foggy, and Karen stand in the lobby of Nelson, Murdoch, and Page. They discuss their next move when Matt begins to notice something. The smell of sulfur and burning gasoline, heavy smoke, car alarms blaring, the crackling of flames, all of this echoing through a large structure. What is it? Parking garage just exploded 6 blocks away. A bomb. Felicia stands on top of a building across from the parking garage. Just then, Spider-Man and Daredevil arrive. "Who are you?" "You killed my father." Black Cat lunges at Spider-Man, but he's able to avoid the attack. The three of them fight for a moment, but it doesn't last very long. Felicia ends up on top of Daredevil, and she puts her claws to his throat. "Come closer and he's dead. Your dad was Walter Hardy, right?" "That wasn't me. I'm being framed. We're trying to find the one who killed him." "Help us find him." Felicia thinks for a moment. Then in a swift motion, she moves over to Spider-Man and pins him to the ground. She looks him up and down, then smiles. "Alright, Spider, but only because I need your help." "With?" "Fisk had my father killed. You aren't getting into Fisk Tower by yourself. You need us. You're not willing to get a little vengeance? We aren't gonna kill anyone." "Aw, shame." She gets off of Spider-Man and dives off the building. Spider-Man and Daredevil rush to the ledge and chase after her. Eventually, the chase finds itself in Times Square. As Felicia tries to reach Fisk Tower, she's stopped by Spider-Man. He tackles her and punches her in the face repeatedly. It's brutal. This isn't Spider-Man. This is the Chameleon. Around the fight, bystanders take out their phones and begin recording. They go blow for blow, but Chameleon makes sure everything is on video and in the public eye. Eventually, Felicia is able to get away, but Chameleon isn't worried. His job is done. The entire city just saw Spider-Man try to kill this woman in the middle of Times Square. Inside of Fisk Tower, the Kingpin watches live footage of the attack. He lets out a sigh of relief, knowing his plan is working. He picks up a phone and calls the captain of the police force. "This is getting out of hand. All vigilantes shoot on sight. No exceptions." Kingpin hangs up the phone and smirks, watching the chaos unfold. And that's the end of Act 2. I think that by now we have had plenty of time to establish the stakes and motivations for everyone. And speaking of stakes, when it comes to the stakes of this story, I think that it's important to show we have a much more grounded emotional story here. I think as comic book fans, we're so used to massive world-ending threats that we always kind of tend to forget that there are people underneath that have these emotions about what's going on. I think we're all really just looking for a superhero movie that has a much deeper story and themes and personal stakes for our characters. Just something more real. For Peter, he's come to accept others again, and that's thanks to Matt at the cemetery. But it's also important for us to show that this was never supposed to be his entire arc throughout the movie. This movie wasn't going to end with him learning that lesson, but him teaching that lesson to someone else. And that someone else is Felicia. She's so blinded by hatred and revenge that she is being driven to what Peter has been trying to fight against this entire movie. Her father's death had the same effect on her that May's had on Peter, but because of their different upbringings, she's going down a much darker path than Peter went on, and only he can save her from herself. And finally, we have Matt. While other MCU movies tend to give Spider-Man a mentor figure, I don't want that here. Daredevil's not supposed to be a mentor to Spider-Man, but more of just a friend or a big brother. Someone helping Peter through the troubles that he's already faced. And his role in this story is absolutely crucial to telling the story the right way. Entering an abandoned warehouse, Spider-Man and Daredevil catch up with Felicia. She sits at a table tending to her own wounds. Need some help? Felicia stands up and gets ready for another fight. It's alright. We aren't here to fight you. Felicia sighs and sits back down. Who the hell was that guy? No idea. May I? Felicia rolls her eyes and hands the stitches to Daredevil. Can you listen to us this time? I'm just trying to do right by him. If it means killing that psycho who looks like you, I'll do it. Him, then Fisk. I won't fix anything. Trust me, I've tried. I've tried putting an end to Fisk before. I almost did. Taking a life doesn't bring another back. It just doesn't. Daredevil finishes stitching her up and stands. So what are you two gonna do? We'll get him. And the guy framing me. Spider-Man takes Felicia's hand. We'll do it together. Felicia looks at Spider-Man for a moment then smiles. Alright. Let's do it. We need to get to the mercenary first. We won't be able to get to Fisk with him in our way. How do we find him? We just go back. Times Square. Felicia, lure him out. Daredevil, you're with me. Let's go get this guy. Back in Times Square, Felicia walks throughout the streets. From the rooftops above, Spider-Man and Daredevil watch. In the crowds, they notice something. One person is rushing towards her, barging past other people, but it seems like nearly every time they blink, it's a different person. Within seconds, Chameleon jumps out at Felicia once again. Avoiding the attack, Felicia leads him into an apartment building nearby. Chameleon chases Felicia through the building until he's led to the top floor where Spider-Man and Daredevil wait for him. Chameleon takes down his disguise, revealing his full character design. Our heroes fight our villain until he gets the upper hand on Daredevil. Spider-Man looks to Felicia for help, but she just laughs. This was fun. We should do this again sometime. Felicia, no! Black Cat flips out the window, leaving Spider-Man and Daredevil to fight Chameleon on their own. They fight, and ultimately Spider-Man and Daredevil emerge victorious. Daredevil tells Spider-Man to go after Felicia before she can get to Fisk. Spider-Man nods and jumps out the window. At Fisk Tower, Felicia makes her way to the roof. 2 guards stand by the door. Felicia easily drops these guys and slips inside. She makes her way through the hallways, avoiding hordes of security. While at the same time, Spider-Man lands on the roof. He notices the guards Felicia took out and goes in. He goes through the same hallways Felicia did, but he doesn't have the stealth of the Black Cat. He's seen and we get a classic hallway fight. Spider-Man shows off his underrated combat skills as he takes out waves of guards in a long oneer. An unbroken shot of pure action as he makes his way down the hallways, trying to get to Fisk's penthouse. Speaking of the penthouse, Felicia's inside. She confronts Kingpin in front of the massive windows overlooking the city. I had a feeling you'd come find me. You killed my father. Your father was a pest. That doesn't give you the right. Felicia takes a pistol from her belt. Get on your knees. If you're gonna shoot me here tonight, I will not be executed like a sick dog. Felicia steps closer, anger pulsing through her veins. Do you regret it? The only thing I regret is not killing him years ago. But then again, his death has helped me immensely. Killing your father gave the people of New York the push they needed to turn against the so-called heroes of this city. Your father's death has become the greatest decision of my life. Felicia lets out a cry of fury, but before she can pull the trigger, a web latches onto the gun and pulls it away from Fisk. Felicia turns to Spider-Man, who stands in the doorway. I can't let you do this, Felicia. This isn't your choice. It isn't yours either. Who are you to decide who lives and dies? You can be better than that, Felicia. You are better than that. You don't know me. You're right, I don't, but I know myself, and I see the bad parts of me inside of you. I see the scared kid who lost their parents in you, the person who's afraid to let others in. Look at yourself. Don't be what this maniac has turned you into. Spider-Man steps closer to Felicia and extends his hand, just as Matt had done for him when he needed someone. She takes his hand and embraces him. She cries into his chest, and Spider-Man comforts her. Just then, a group of police officers barge in, guns drawn. He thinks for a second, then grabs Felicia. He punches through the window and jumps out with her. The Kingpin stands and tells the officers he's fine, then watches as Spider-Man swings away with Felicia. The following week, Spider-Man is in court. He's represented by Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson, and his name is cleared. The lawyers are able to put Chameleon in prison, but there isn't enough evidence to put Fisk behind bars, meaning he's staying in power over New York. Our final scene is at the top of the Daily Bugle. Black Cat sits on the ledge as Spider-Man drops down behind her. You wanted to see me? Felicia stands up and turns to Spider-Man. I never got to thank you for helping me the other day. You don't have to. And hey, we'll get Fisk the right way. Felicia steps closer to him, putting her hand on his chest. I know. I'll be the one to do it. She looks him up and down. You want in? She slides his mask up and the two kiss. He backs up and jumps onto the ledge of the building. I'll give you a call. See you soon, Spider. With that, Spider-Man jumps off the roof into our final swing as we cut to black. And that's my pitch for the MCU Spider-Man 4. Let me know what you thought and what you guys would do differently or how you would make this movie in the comments below. I read every single comment and I respond to just about every single one as well. Don't forget to give this video a like and a subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Dude, where have you been? What do you want? What do you want? You haven't uploaded in months, man. You gotta upload something. Well, I mean, to tell you the truth, man, I've just been feeling a little burnt out, and it's man, nobody cares, dude. Just put something out. Come on, everyone's waiting for you. Okay, well, to tell you the truth, I don't even know what to upload. All right, well, here, man, take a look at this. Yeah, sure. What is it? What is this? That's your next video, man. That's gonna do numbers. I mean, you gotta pitch Avengers Doomsday, man. You're right. You're right. I know what to upload now. Man, sit back down. Go write and edit and do all that stuff. I'm gonna be watching you. With Avengers Doomsday on the horizon, I decided to try my hand at pitching what this movie could look like. It seems as if this movie is already fighting an uphill battle with the majority of fans not agreeing with the casting choice of Robert Downey Jr.
What?
I want to write a version of this movie that encapsulates everything that makes the MCU such a powerhouse in the entertainment industry. A franchise that's been struggling with its identity, continuity, and purpose as of late. Make something with its own voice yet also stays true to the MCU that was built up in previous phases, similar to Infinity War and Endgame. I want a story with a darker tone. We need people to take the MCU seriously again, and with the Russo brothers returning to direct and Stephen McFeely writing, we could potentially get another Avengers movie with the same amount of gravitas and passion as the movies pre-Phase 4. We need a movie that not only challenges our characters, but also us as the audience, to change what we know about the Avengers and expand upon it. With a new lineup of characters, we can find a new tone and style in order to avoid treading on old ground. We need a movie that's able to handle the characterization of these icons, but also one with the sincerity of those previous projects. If Infinity War and Endgame were the climactic finales to the Infinity Saga, how can Doomsday and Secret Wars do the same for the Multiverse Saga? With a saga so cursed with rushed projects and oversaturation, how do we create something that stands out? Create an event that can get people invested once more. Getting it out of the way now, RDJ is a really strange choice for Dr. Doom. To nearly everyone, RDJ is Iron Man and always will be, myself included. But with him coming hot off an Oscar win for playing a petty, manipulative villain, I think this casting choice is a pretty good one, even if it reeks of desperation. If RDJ wasn't Iron Man previously, I don't think people would have as big of an issue with this choice. I know there's a lot of mystery surrounding which characters will be on this Avengers roster, so we'll start there. Going off of the rumored plot for Captain America Brave New World, President Ross is asking Sam Wilson to form a new team of heroes, so it's safe to assume he'll have done this by the end of the film or in between projects. So, listing off each member of the team, let's start with Sam Wilson himself, Captain America. This one is a no-brainer. He'll be leading the team and be our point of view character throughout this film. Next up is Bruce Banner, the Hulk. Ever since Endgame, Bruce has been in a rough spot character-wise. He's become Smart Hulk, and literally nobody likes it. It's terrible, but we're going with it.
Damn.
For some of our returning characters, we've got Captain Marvel, Ant-Man, Thor, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man. These are mainstays of the MCU at this point, so it wouldn't really feel right to not include them here. Captain Marvel and Ant-Man's last appearances weren't very great, and with both of their next films confirmed to not be moving forward, I believe Doomsday and Secret Wars will most likely send off those characters. There's a similar story with Thor there, seeing as Hemsworth has said he's only got a couple more appearances left in him. Spider-Man is an interesting one though. With nobody knowing who Peter Parker is, it'll be safe to assume he'll be treated as this new, young member to the team. This is getting a bit too long, so I'll briefly explain why the other characters are here. Daredevil seems to be an important part of the MCU moving forward. Excluding his Netflix show, which ran for 3 seasons, he's already appeared in No Way Home, She-Hulk, Echo, and now another solo series that's been confirmed to be running for 2 seasons. I'm not going to complain though, he's my favorite Marvel character, so I'll take all the Daredevil I can get. Shang-Chi seems to be growing in popularity amongst the fans, seeing as his movie is one of the only good ones in Phase 4. And not only that, but he has incredible martial arts skills, and he wields the 10 rings now, so he's an absolute powerhouse. She-Hulk's show was a major low point in the MCU, and nobody's arguing against that, except Fernando V Movies, but no hate, he's a cool dude. Although I do believe with better writers this character can absolutely work, and she does in the comics. America Chavez is an interesting one. Oh, and Wong. He'll be here. I know Jeremy Renner has talked about this movie, so it's safe to assume Hawkeye is going to be there, but I couldn't find a place for him in this story. So just use your imagination and fill him in wherever you'd like in this story, I guess. It's already been confirmed that the Fantastic Four will be in both Doomsday and Secret Wars, so I'll be having 2 point-of-view characters in this film, Sam Wilson and Reed Richards. And now without any more delays, let's get into my pitch for Avengers Doomsday. The movie begins on a dreadful note. We see the ending of Fantastic Four First Steps once again. Galactus has destroyed Earth, and the Fantastic Four are sent to the sacred timeline. Left on what remains, the wreckage, the proof of the Fantastic Four's failure, Victor Von Doom lies still. He comes to and notices the immense scarring on his face caused by the event. He's unrecognizable. He knows why this has happened. Reed Richards failed to save their planet, and now he's gone, avoiding the consequences to his failures once again. He watches over the destroyed, unrecognizable landscape of Latveria and knows what he must do. He forges a suit of armor and begins construction on thousands of highly advanced death robots. This is the birth of Dr. Doom, and he's out for revenge. We see Sam Wilson sitting on a bench by a lake, the same bench where he last saw his friend, the original Captain America, Steve Rogers, the same bench where he was given the mantle of one of the greatest heroes the world has ever seen. He watches the lake and takes a deep breath. What am I doing, Steve? Sam looks to his right to see the shield, the beacon of liberty and freedom. He places his hand on it and closes his eyes. Wish you were here, men. Just then, we hear a familiar voice approach Sam. They're here. Sam turns around to see Bruce Banner, the Hulk. All of them? Bruce nods. We cut to the airship of the Avengers facility. A ship lands on the runway and stops in front of Sam and Bruce. The door opens and the new recruits step out. Captain Marvel and Ant-Man lead She-Hulk, Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Shang-Chi out. Bruce looks up into the sky as Thor blasts down from the clouds, lightning surging through the air around him. Sam examines the group and tells them that it's time for training. Inside, we get to see the team attempt to work together as they train. They use their powers with one another, but their coordination is off. Sam realizes that leading this team is going to be even harder than he initially thought. Back in the city, the Fantastic Four arrive. They walk through the streets of New York City, hardly recognizing the area they've lived their whole lives. In a scene similar to the ending of Captain America the First Avenger, a character confronts them. They turn around to see Doctor Strange walk through the portal. He steps through and tells the team that he needs to talk to them. Reed questions who he is, but he says it's for the sake of the universe. Our next scene is the Fantastic Four at Camartage. Inside, they meet Wong and America Chavez. Strange tells them that he knows they aren't from this universe, but he knows who they are. When the Fantastic Four question what the problem is, America opens portals to different universes. Strange, Wong, America, and the Fantastic Four take a trip through the multiverse, finding nearly 100 dystopian worlds overruled by Doombots. Sue tells Strange that they can't be responsible for that, but Wong tells them that the person overtaking these worlds is Victor Von Doom. The Fantastic Four know the name, Reed's old friend, his bitter rival. The Fantastic Four are shocked to hear that Doom survived the death of their world. So they ask how. Then they ask why. Strange tells them that from what they've seen, He's been traveling throughout the multiverse, killing every version of the Fantastic Four and claiming the world as territory of Latveria. It's only a matter of time before Doom finds the ones he's looking for. Wong suggests getting the help from the Avengers, and while Strange doesn't think they need them, Wong convinces him that this is bigger than a couple of sorcerers. That night, we're back at the Avengers compound. The team is unwinding from a long day of training when they're alerted of something outside. On the lawn, they see a robot. Its sleek metallic design is draped in a cloak with glowing green eyes. The team is put on edge, ready for the worst. They approach the robot and Sam calls out to it. The robot surveys the area and everything is silent. Then, it looks at the Avengers. Enemies of Doom confirmed. With that, it flies towards the team at rocket speeds. Sam uses his shield to block the robot, but it self-destructs when it reaches them. From the tree line behind them, 24 Doombots arise. They lock onto the Avengers, and the fight begins. With the Doombots' enhanced strength, they're formidable foes. Their strength matches the Hulk, their speed matches Spider-Man's agility, and their armor matches up against Captain Marvel's durability. Just as it seems to be over, Doctor Strange's portal opens, and the Fantastic Four arrive alongside the Sorcerer. They put down the Doombots and head inside. From the distance, a dark figure with green night vision goggles watches them, surveying the team. It's unclear who they are, unclear whose side they're on. After the Fantastic Four explain who they are and why they're here, as well as who Doctor Doom is, we begin to see the difference in ideologies between Sam and Reed. Reed suggests they go on defense and prepare for Doom's arrival, but Sam wants to take a more head-on approach. Reed explains that if Doom has already destroyed hundreds of Earths, then they have to assume he's killed the Avengers just as many times. Bruce explains that it would be nearly impossible to travel the multiverse without the use of advanced technology or high mastery of magic. This is when Strange tells Bruce that Doom has both. Eventually, Sam puts his foot down. They're going after Doom. He won't risk Doom taking over their Earth. Reed tells him that it's suicide, but Sam doesn't listen. He believes that his team is strong enough to take on Doom. He offers the Fantastic Four a place at his side, but Reed declines for them, electing to work on defense instead. However, Spider-Man and Bruce decide to work with the Fantastic Four as well. Spider-Man believes he needs to help the people here, while Bruce thinks he'll be of the most help with the scientists. The Avengers, alongside America Chavez, travel throughout the multiverse, stealthily moving throughout the overrun worlds. They try to avoid Doombots as they liberate places. As they go world by world, they search for Doom as they team up with multiversal variants of the Avengers. We can expect to see different variants of the iconic Avengers from the past, as well as alternate Fantastic Four variants. Back in the Sacred Timeline, we see the Fantastic Four work with Bruce and Spider-Man to figure out ways to stop Doom. We see the brother-like friendship between Spider-Man and Human Torch begin, while Reed and Bruce bond over scientific theories. With the Avengers, they finally find Doom. They try fighting him, but they're no match. Nothing they can do can even slow him down. After the fight, they're able to remove Doom's mask, revealing him to have the same face as Tony Stark in their universe. This is explained as Doom not being a variant of Tony Stark. Just like there's no Norman Osborn in Earth 616, there's no Tony Stark on the Fantastic Four's world. He's Victor Von Doom. The Avengers are shocked and unable to gather their thoughts. They struggle to separate their past memories of Stark, and Doom is able to defeat them. He deduces which universe they're from, and sets his sights on Earth 616. During this fight, Doom gives a speech, explaining how he's going to take over every nation on their Earth one by one until he's deemed the ruler and Latveria takes over. He lists specific locations, one of which being New Asgard. He mentions how it's been the only civilization to put up a decent fight, so he'll start there. This causes Thor to lash out, not being able to lose his home again. But at the end of the battle, Ant-Man and Thor are killed. It's a huge moment that isn't undercut by any jokes. This is the loss of two beloved heroes that we've grown to love over the past decade. Doom then realizes that America Chavez is the one taking them throughout the multiverse, so Doom kills her as well, proving that Doom will kill anybody who stands in his way. Reeling from their loss, Sam realizes how bad he messed up. 3 of his team members are dead, and they're stranded in a destroyed world. His guilt sets in, and he questions if this is where he's supposed to be. He made a bad call, and all of his friends have paid for it. All hope is lost until they're eventually found by the last people they'd expect. Yelena Belova, US Agent, Red Guardian, Ghost, and Taskmaster approach them. Sam and the team stand ready for another fight, recognizing these people from their pasts. Just then, Bucky Barnes steps out from behind them and greets Sam. Sam asks how they followed them, and Yelena tells him that they're a team of stealth operatives. Not hard to tail a large group of people in colorful outfits. Val tasked them with investigating the Avengers, wanting to keep tabs on the information of Earth's most powerful forces. Doctor Strange interjects and questions how a group of super soldiers managed to fight off the Doombots, and Red Guardian answers. He tells them that they haven't had to fight many, but when they did, they had help. Just then, the Sentry enters the room. He shows his respect towards Captain America and says that he's here to help. The Avengers and Thunderbolts regain their bearings and work to figure out a way to get home. Back in the Sacred Timeline, the Fantastic Four work with Bruce and Spider-Man to figure out Doom's location. They trace strong technological and mystical energy waves throughout the multiverse to pinpoint his location, but nothing turns up. However, they do discover a pattern to Doom's takeovers. The order of universes and how he's taking over them leads them to believe the worst. Doom is taking over all these worlds in an attempt to merge them all into one place where he can rule them all, one massive incursion event to put him on top. As they work, they're notified of something happening in Eastern Europe. The Fantastic Four and the others realize what this could mean. They use the Quinjet and fly off to Europe. Doom has arrived. The location is where Latveria should be, but the country doesn't exist in this timeline. Doom uses a large castle and has his Doombots begin constructing his incursion machine. The heroes fight through Doombots, trying their best to destroy the device before it's complete. After a while, the heroes reach the top of the castle. They fight Doom, but they're no match. Doom is finally confronting those he believes destroyed his home, his people. But on the Fantastic Four's side, they're fighting an old friend, someone they don't want to hurt, but have to. When everyone else is down, we get a 1v1 fight between Doom and the Hulk. Bruce tries, but he doesn't have the ability to fight. He's become more Bruce than Hulk over these past years, and this causes him to lose. He's nearly killed and thrown to the side. The device is assembled and the incursions begin. The sky tears open as other worlds come crashing through, and this event puts the Avengers and Thunderbolts back into their timeline. As the three teams fight Doom and the Doombots, it seems like it's over. Their power isn't enough to stop this villain. Just then, they hear a roar of anger outside. Everyone turns their attention towards a hole in the wall as the Hulk bursts through. His veins glow a bright green as he charges at Doom, fully savage once again. They fight once more, and this time the Hulk is able to get Doom on the ground. But even after it all, they're too late. The incursions begin and every world is crashing into the sacred timeline. Billions of people throughout the multiverse are killed, and every Earth is merged into one world, the Battle World. The movie ends with all three teams defeated and witnessing what they believe to be the end of their universe. They look at one another as they close their eyes. Just then, they all awake. We see each of our heroes in different places across this war-torn landscape, but across nearly every building is the flag of Latveria, claiming Doom's empire. Sam and Reed find one another close by, and they look upon the new Earth in shock, their teams, their families, lost in this strange new place. Hey, how are you? The Marvel Cinematic Universe is introducing the Fantastic Four within the coming years. We've seen Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but he hasn't been very important to the overall MCU going forward. We've gotten a few Fantastic Four movies in the past, but none of them have been very good. Some of them have been downright terrible.
It's fantastic.
Yes, it is.
People say that it's impossible to make a good Fantastic Four movie, but I think that that's just wrong. I'm sure that's what some people were saying about Guardians of the Galaxy before 2014 as well. The Fantastic Four is one of my favorite teams in all of comics. It's actually number 2, right under the Justice League. But why do I love these characters so much? Well, it's one simple word: complexity. All 4 of these characters have the potential to be the best character in the MCU as a whole. With Reed Richards, you have a man who deals with situations based on logic and intuition rather than emotion. This can make him seem like a character who has no compassion for others or cares so little, when in reality, he cares more than anyone. He has the need to always be right because the last time he wasn't, it almost killed the people closest to him. He cherishes the small moments, whether that be hanging out with his best friend or helping raise his kids with his wife. He's always appreciative of the most overlooked aspects of life. Reed Richards always focuses on the long-term effects of a decision while not caring about the short-term ramifications for those actions. His biggest weakness is being too curious for his own good. Sue Storm holds everything together. She's friendly, clever, brave, and calculated. She knows what's best for the team even when Reed thinks he's right. Sue has that motherly energy that makes her care about all of the Fantastic Four members more than even herself. She's also a badass in her own way, though. In the comics, she's done everything. She's been a superhero, a mother, a wife to the smartest man on Earth, an explorer, scientist, a spy. She has literally done it all. In this movie, that needs to be shown with who they cast and how they write her character. Sue will need to have the commanding presence when she walks into the room, yet also a warm, loving feeling when you give her a hug. She needs to be able to balance both sides. Johnny Storm needs to be confident, playful, charming, and spontaneous. He's an irresponsible and immature, which isn't something you want to be when you're the most powerful member of a superhero team. Johnny quite literally has the power of an imploding star in many comics. Throughout this movie, we need to see Johnny grow from this immature kid to a powerful man capable of handling his own. Think of A-Train from The Boys, but a good person. I even think it would be cool if we gave him a scene similar to The Flash in Zack Snyder's Justice League. It can be his major moment of the movie where he saves the entire team and becomes the powerful and courageous man that Johnny was always meant to be, a real superhero. Ben Grimm is tough. He's the muscle of the group. Ben Grimm and Reed Richards have been friends since middle school and they've done everything together. Ben is a pilot, which is why he's chosen for the space mission in the first place. Ben needs to be the team's rock, pun intended. He needs to be someone who the team can rely on in important situations. Ben grapples with his identity all the time, which is what makes him relatable to the audience. He's just trying to find a place to feel at home in a world that rejects him and calls him a freak, a thing. Ben has a family with the Fantastic Four, and he would do anything for them. Ben is the edge to the group. He has slight anger issues, and he isn't afraid to charge fist first into a fight. Ben tries to be perfect, but just like all of us, he isn't. He can't be. He needs to learn to be himself. A lot of people say that we don't need another origin movie for the Fantastic Four, but I disagree. The 2005 movie didn't come anywhere close to giving these characters the depth and representation that they need, and the 2015 movie, nobody saw that shit. If you were to go out onto the street and ask the average person what the origins of the Fantastic Four are, they would have no idea. Another origin story is necessary, and it's necessary to do it right. I'm sure Marvel would want to link this to the past entries of the MCU, so let's do just that. Have Reed be researching intergalactic travel through SWORD, which was introduced in WandaVision as a research facility, more of a sister company to S.H.I.E.L.D. Everybody thought that Reed Richards was that mystery contact that Monica Rambeau had, so let's make him an employee of SWORD. Sue can be working there too. She's on the same project as Reed and she's analyzing the route that the ship will be taking when she notices a cosmic storm. Reed uses this storm as his excuse to test out the new ship that he built. Johnny can be working as a security. He's brought onto the mission because Sue's a senior data analyst, so she's able to make calls on missions that she's assigned to. As for Ben, Reed is able to convince Sue, who is already his wife at this point, to let him pilot the ship. Sue and the rest of SWORD agree that this decision is best because Ben was a trusted pilot for S.H.I.E.L.D. back before the blip. And just like that, our first act is finished. We've established where everybody was during the Infinity Saga, we've built more onto what SWORD as a company is doing, we've introduced all of our characters and how they act, and we gave our heroes their abilities. The villain of this movie needs to be somebody other than Doctor Doom. He's been the villain of every single Fantastic Four movie, and he hasn't even been correctly done once. Leave him alone for a while. I'm not saying don't ever use him, but let's wait until there's a better opportunity. The antagonist could be a Kang variant, but let's not do that here. I think that this will most likely be a villain that they use for the movie in reality, but I think that this wouldn't fit with a Fantastic Four origin story. So, I've narrowed it down to 3 options. First, Mole Man. This was the Fantastic Four's first villain, and he could be a very interesting character to use if he's, written well. However, I've decided not to use him here because I want this to be a more cosmic, interdimensional based movie, like the best of the Fantastic Four comics, so Mole Man's out. Second, if we're sticking with the cosmic based enemies, what about Galactus? I think that this would be a great choice, actually. With Galactus, we could also introduce Silver Surfer, and they could both play important roles in Avengers Secret Wars. One problem, though. They were already used in previous Fantastic Four movies. I want to try to avoid the overlap. Granted, this Galactus wouldn't be a cloud, so it's not super similar, but it's still Galactus and Silver Surfer, so they're out. And now for the villain that I've actually decided to go with for this movie, Super Skrull. Super Skrull is the perfect threat for this movie. He is cosmic-based, Skrulls are already established in the MCU with Captain Marvel back in 2019, and they're about to be even more prevalent with Secret Invasion coming out this year. This movie could springboard off of that series. At the end of Secret Invasion, we could see the Skrulls as a whole be divided. Half of the Skrulls want to side with the humans and choose the peaceful route, but the other half would want to destroy Earth for whatever the hell happens in that show that causes tension between humans and Skrulls. Kl'rt would be a Skrull that's impacted by the Secret Invasion series heavily. I'm not sure exactly what happens to him because the series isn't out yet, but he wouldn't be happy with the outcome of the series. I imagine the Skrull race would be severely weakened and torn in half by the end. So, Kl'rt would take on the name Super Skrull to try and unify the Skrulls once more, but as a more murderous and vengeful species. He would run the Skrulls as a warmongering dictator, a vicious leader only set on the extinction of humans. Obviously, the Fantastic Four wouldn't be a huge fan of this. We can also say something about Reed and Sue knowing about the Skrulls and the Secret Invasion because of their positions at S.W.O.R.D. I want Super Skrull to be the team's biggest challenge, not only as a physical threat by using the combined powers of all 4 members, but also intellect. I want Super Skrull to challenge Reed to his intelligence. I want Super Skrull to really push the knife in deeper and fill him with guilt for the accident. I want him to use Sue's compassion for her family against her. I want him to torment Johnny and place a rather comedic character into a mature life or death situation. I want him to show Ben that he's always been nothing, ugly to the world. The accident only made Ben more of who he really is. Although he is technically right, Ben did become more of who he was. A lover, not a fighter, and someone who has the ability to protect those that he cares for, now more than ever. I want Super Skrull to push the family to the brink of collapse. We could see a great scene with huge space battles. We can get a scene where the Fantastic Four need to infiltrate a Skrull ship, so Sue uses her abilities to become a spy. We can have Johnny mess up this mission with his hot-headedness, once again, pun intended. He can get captured and tortured by the Skrulls after that. This can be where Super Skrull begins taking their abilities. Kl'rt keeps Johnny hostage and duplicates his powers for himself. Then, the rest of the team need to stage a prison break to rescue Johnny. While they try and save Sue's brother, they're all captured. Kl'rt then uses this opportunity to duplicate everybody's abilities. This would bring us to the end of Act 2. The third act can be the team breaking out of the ship. They fight throughout waves of Skrulls while they have to use their newfound teamwork that they've grown to use throughout the movie in order to survive. We can see the team using their powers with cool combos and things like that, really show people how cool the Fantastic Four can be. I think it'd be cool to show how reluctant everybody is at first to work together. Reed and Sue would have tension put on their marriage after the accident, with Reed putting all the blame on himself and causing him to overanalyze every situation, which in turn makes him almost neglectful towards Sue. We can see the bickering between Johnny and Ben, both of them trying to be the biggest personalities in the room. Ben can blame Reed for what happened to him, which only sinks Reed further into his hole. Johnny can resent Sue for bringing him on the ship. But after the events of the movie, everybody can learn to accept one another for who they are and what they've all become. They learn to embrace their new abilities and choose to use them in order to help others in ways that they couldn't before. I guess a good way to do that is to stop another Skrull invasion and the extinction of the human race. I know people are sick of high stakes in the MCU, but with a team like the Fantastic Four, you can't have low stakes. That's like having the Justice League deal with a leak in the plumbing of the Hall of Justice. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. And in order for people to get on board with the more incredible team, they really need to emphasize how big and important these characters can be. The finale of the movie shows the Fantastic Four being overpowered by Super Skrull and almost dying. All hope is lost, and they're overcome by the hostile Skrulls and their ruthless leader. Johnny's able to get the rest of the Fantastic Four out of harm's way, and he's ready to sacrifice himself. He activates his Nova Flame and blows up the entire ship, killing all of the Skrulls inside. Super Skrull's body won't be shown in case the MCU would want to use him again, or something, I don't know. I want to leave his fate open-ended. I don't like when the MCU just kills off their villains after their first outing. The Fantastic Four would find an injured Johnny and they would take him back to their base of operations to help him recover. Where is their base of operations, you may ask? Well, it's the obvious answer, the Baxter Building. The final scene of this movie takes place 2 months later. Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben would be walking down New York City when Mole Man explodes from the ground and they all quickly suit up in their costumes. The team then rush in and they recreate the cover of that first Fantastic Four comic. Hey, how are you? Marvel Studios has announced their plans to bring the Thunderbolts into the MCU at the end of Phase 5. If you don't know who that team is, I'll give you a brief rundown. The Thunderbolts are essentially Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad from DC. They're a group of villains and anti-heroes that go on missions led by Thunderbolt Ross, hence the name. The team's roster is typically rotating around and it never has a very consistent lineup, but there are a few characters who typically tend to stick around longer than others. Let me explain to you the lineup for this movie. It's already been announced that the team will consist of Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, Ghost, US Agent, and Taskmaster, and then led by Val. I'm going to make some changes though because I think that this lineup could use some work. First off, I'm not using Taskmaster. I think that the MCU version of Taskmaster is past the point of being fixed, and general audiences will never resonate with how badly they massacred that character. They essentially gave Taskmaster the X-Men Origins Deadpool treatment, and I'm just going to be removing that character from this roster.
你别笑，做一个专业的演员吗？
Also, I don't think that over half of the team should be made up of characters that come from the Black Widow movie. That would just make this movie Black Widow 2. I also want to take Bucky off this team. I don't see a world where Bucky would go back to being the Winter Soldier to be a government assassin again. I'm going to keep this team relatively small, only 4 members, and you'll see why it's important to keep it contained by the time the movie ends. Now, with all of that being said, let's get into my pitch for the Thunderbolts. The movie opens on a mission. We see a grand cathedral, huge painted glass windows, and a massive open area. We're in Russia. See something oddly familiar. Captain America's shield, but something's off. The red and white are still there, but in the middle, the blue and the bright white star are gone. A black void sits in its place, colorless, emotionless. John Walker, the US agent. Over his earpiece, we hear who he's communicating with. "Good work, John," Valentina Allegra de Fontaine says back to him. "Now detain the target and return to base." John ventures his way deeper into the cathedral, looking around at the breathtaking art that lines the building, but also staying focused on the mission. He walks in with his shield in front of him, and a pistol to attack with. As he moves, he hears a noise from behind him. He quickly turns around to see what made the noise, but he's immediately body slammed into the ground by a beastly man. John scrambles back to his feet and trains the gun on the man, the Red Guardian. "Alexei Shostakov, you're under arrest for the—" John is cut off by Alexei punching him in the face, knocking him back. John realizes that this isn't going to be a peaceful surrender. He smiles and tightens his shield to his arm as Steve Rogers had done in the past. John sets the pistol on the ground and squares up to the Red Guardian. The fight begins. It's vicious and fast. Each opponent swings with fury, their attacks being perfectly countered by the other. 2 super soldiers. Clearly, Alexei has lost that weight he had in Black Widow, and John had obviously been training. These 2 are equally matched. Alexei manages to get John onto the ground. He stands over him, ready to deal the finishing blow. "You fight with honor, you will die an honorable death," Alexei says. He spoke too soon. John takes a small knife from his boot and digs it into Alexei's knee, causing him to fall. John stands up and begins to beat the hell out of Alexei. "Alive, Walker. We want him alive." John backs away from Alexei. He takes a small syringe from his belt pouch and sticks it into Alexei's neck, knocking him out. Val grins. "Well done, John. He's going to be useful moving forward." Then we cut to the title card. That's the opening scene I decided to go with. It sets up John Walker already working for Val and doing the under-the-table missions for her. Then it shows our first member of the team being recruited. I'm not going to go beat by beat on what the story should be, but I will break down how the characters could work and a rough storyline. Let's start with Yelena Belova. She's the most well-rounded member of the team. She's a spy, she's a fighter, and she's a leader. The reason she'd be joining the team would be very double-sided. Val would initially offer money to Yelena in order to buy her loyalty, but while Yelena would definitely accept just for the payout, she's mostly there to keep an eye on Val and make sure she isn't planning anything nefarious. Her role in the team would be its leader. Val knows that Yelena would be able to get a mission done, and definitely in the most undercover way possible because she's worked with the spy in the past. While on the topic of the team's leader, John Walker, the US agent. You think he'd be the instant leader of the team, but not quite. Val knows John is a loose cannon in the field. As we saw in the opening scene, if Val hadn't stepped in, John would have killed the target. Val and John have presumably been working together for a few years now, but John still hasn't fully convinced Val of his leadership capabilities. This would cause some tension between him and Yelena. He'd feel cheated out of the role, and let's be honest, John definitely isn't always comfortable taking orders from women. To top it off, he's a US government loyalist. He'll do anything they tell him, no questions asked. Red Guardian would bring an interesting dynamic to the team. He's the oldest and arguably the strongest. Not only that, but he's Yelena's father. They haven't seen one another since the events of Black Widow, so this would be a big reunion for them. While Alexei is more than interested in rekindling their relationship, Yelena wouldn't want anything to do with him. She's strictly his boss. However, as the movie progresses, I'd like to see them start to heal their relationship. There could be scenes of tension that show just how much they actually mean to one another. Alexei can put himself in harm's way without question if it means saving Yelena, and Yelena could do the same for him during the third act fight. And for our final member, Ghost. She's the team's wild card. She can get in and out of places with ease, and I want her scenes to almost play as a horror movie. Found footage through security cameras and body cams of guards and soldiers trying to fight this invisible killer. It would add a much needed tone to the character, who fell relatively flat in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Another thing to keep in mind with Ghost is that she's all by herself. She has nobody. She'd be recruited when she'd be arrested trying to steal something from the Raft, the super prison in the ocean. She joins the team because she's promised her freedom if she complies with the mission. As the story progresses, I think that it'd be cool if Alexei and Yelena almost accept Ghost into their family. They lost Natasha during Endgame, and they see just how broken on the inside Ghost is. Ghost is a victim. She never asked for any of these powers. She was never asked to be turned into a weapon. She lost her entire family in the same incident that cursed her from ever being normal again. Ghost would play as the heart of the movie. So what's the main plot of this movie? Well, Val enlists the Thunderbolts to protect the new president of the United States, Thunderbolt Ross. Why does it need protection, you ask? Well, recently there was a security breach in one of the most highly secured test facilities in America. During the breach, one test subject got out, Project Sentry. The government kidnapped the man and began testing on him with a highly experimental super soldier serum variation. He was going to be used as America's ultimate weapon. Well, the experiments worked, better than they could have ever imagined. Robert Reynolds became a god with unknown levels of power. Sentry escapes using his new abilities and vows revenge on Thunderbolt Ross for the torture that he put him through. Throughout our time with the character, we realized that, just like Ghost, he was experimented on, given abilities he didn't want. Then, he was going to be turned into an all-powerful weapon. Sentry's a victim, not a villain. While we watch this character, we see that he has a dark side to him, a being known as the Void. A dark, shadowy figure of himself with immense power. As the film goes on, the Thunderbolts learn about Sentry's origin and they decide not to kill this man. They want to help him. Well, almost the whole team. John Walker is a government loyalist, as stated previously. Our final fight has two parts, the first being Red Guardian versus US Agent, a rematch from the opening. As they fight, neither of them hold back. At the end of the violence, they're both on the brink of death. John tells Alexei that the job needs to be finished no matter what. His anger gets the best of him. He kills Alexei in cold blood, right there where he lies. After this, Sentry is taken back to the lab. The second part of the final battle takes place in Seoul, South Korea. With Alexei dead, Sentry is back in custody, and John's still out there. Yelena and Ghost both agree that they need to figure something out. They need to release Sentry. It's the right thing to do. Forget about the money or the freedom. Yelena and Ghost take out guards in the underground laboratory in a massive one-take fight scene that lasts over 5 minutes. The two anti-heroes clearing out room after room of scientists and soldiers. Eventually, they reach the room where Sentry is being held. Yelena and Ghost kill all the scientists and guards in the room, but there's still one person who stands in their way. John Walker. Yelena and Ghost try and fight him, but they aren't super soldiers. John easily outmatches Yelena with his strength, and he's able to counter Ghost's phasing abilities with his sheer speed and reflexes. Almost all hope is lost until they notice Sentry. Yelena and Ghost need to think fast. Yelena takes a grenade from her vest and pulls the pin, throwing it to Ghost. She then phases through the tube, leaving the grenade inside. The grenade explodes, releasing Sentry. John looks at the godlike being that floats towards him, Sentry's eyes glowing a fiery gold. But then, he rises into the air, red lightning begins to shoot out of him, and he's engulfed in shadows. The Void has arrived. Void looks at John and knows he's the reason he's being tested on. Void makes quick work of John. He grabs him and lifts him into the air, then proceeds to electrocute John with the red and black lightning that fills the air. The lightning is so strong that Ghost needs to grab onto Yelena and phase them both through the electricity filling the room. After a moment of horrific screaming from John, his burnt, nearly dead body is dropped to the floor. Void drops him to the ground and crawls towards John, distorting his body in an almost poltergeist way. He reaches John and grabs his chest. John begins to scream as Void rips his entire body in half. Okay, did I mention that I want this to be the first R-rated MCU movie? We can't have this many violent anti-heroes in a movie without using excessive adult language, intense violence, and gore. We just can't. In the closing scenes, we watch as Yelena and Ghost talk with Sentry on top of the Lot World Tower, the tallest building in Seoul. Yelena tells Ghost that Val is going to be after them, and Ghost just tells her that there's nothing new to her about being on the run from the government. Yelena says that she's going to go figure out a proper way to say goodbye to Alexei, but Sentry has other plans. He knows that the Void is too powerful and dangerous to be left unchecked and in the public. He's going to fly into the mountains of Nepal and live there, learning to master his abilities and keep the Void suppressed, far away from people as he can get. The 3 part ways in the movie ends. Deadpool 3 is confirmed to be happening sometime soon. Ryan Reynolds has been hard at work on the script for it, and we should be getting more news on the project soon. Do I even need to make an intro for this video though? I mean, everybody already knows about this movie. It's like the most anticipated Marvel movie since Endgame. I don't know. I wrote my Deadpool 3, so let me know what you think in the comments, subscribe and like the video. Now enjoy my pitch for Marvel Studios' Deadpool 3. After the events of Deadpool 2 and the shenanigans pulled with the time-traveling device that Cable gave him, Deadpool finds his way into the MCU. After arriving, he's arrested by the TVA for said shenanigans. Deadpool is given his trial at the TVA, but he notices something while he's there. The TVA soldiers talk about a new threat to the timeline, some time-traveling warlord known as Maestro. Deadpool tells the TVA that he can help with their Maestro problem right before they're about to prune him. The TVA are interested, so they assign Mobius, the Owen Wilson one, not the Jared Leto one, to Deadpool's case. Mobius tells Deadpool that if he can deal with their Maestro problem, they'll allow him safe passage into the MCU. However, if he fails and tries to backstab them, he's gonna get pruned. Mobius has some experience dealing with these backstabbing anti-heroes in situations like these. Mobius sends Deadpool to Maestro's last known location. Deadpool wanders through a barren wasteland filled with jagged, broken stone protruding from the ground, with visible galaxies crashing into one another far off in the sky. Deadpool has no idea where he is. As he walks through the wasteland, he finally finds Maestro, and holy shit, it's the Hulk. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is he has a beard. Deadpool immediately realizes why this guy is an issue, and when Maestro attacks Deadpool, thinking he's working for the TVA, Deadpool is instantly torn to shreds by the ruthless, evil, hyper-intelligent, and super pissed off Hulk. Deadpool manages to escape back to the TVA, and he tells Mobius that he's gonna need a team. He's gonna need his own Suicide Squad. Mobius asks what that is, but Deadpool just tells him that it's James's problem now. Mobius asks who he needs on his team, and Deadpool gives him a smart look into the camera. He's gonna need some legacy characters. The next scene is Deadpool arriving at the X-Mansion back in the Fox universe. He makes a joke about how it's funny that this is the third time in 3 movies he's knocking on the door to recruit the same group of people. Then, Beast opens the door. Deadpool gasps. Oh my god, they can afford more X-Men? Deadpool rushes inside and he sees the entire building busy with tons of mutants going class to class, as well as teachers wandering the halls. He's amazed at seeing this new Disney budget. We smash cut to the gymnasium where we see Colossus teaching PE to the young mutants. Deadpool runs him by the situation, and Colossus is in. He loves hearing that Deadpool is embracing the hero role. Deadpool asks Colossus where Negasonic Teenage Warhead is, but Colossus tells him that she graduated and she's going on to do her own things as a full-fledged X-Men. Deadpool thinks for a moment about what else they could do, and then Cyclops approaches Deadpool and says that he'll help. Deadpool shuts him down and tells him that he wasn't a fan favorite. Then, he gets an idea. The fan favorites! We cut to the inside of Blind Al's apartment, where we see Al and Dopinder sitting on the couch. Deadpool, Colossus, and Mobius are explaining the situation. Al tells Deadpool that he's stupid for asking her, but Dopinder is in. Mobius cuts off Dopinder, though he tells Deadpool that the taxi driver can't come. He'll get killed instantly, he's fighting a Hulk. Deadpool completely agrees with Mobius. Then, it's back to the X-Mansion to find more people to recruit. When they get back, Deadpool finishes recruiting his team. So Deadpool recruits Gambit, Storm, Nightcrawler, and Jubilee because she was annoying and Deadpool just had to let her join. And now, with the team in place, Mobius takes them back to the TVA for a plan. For the rest of the movie, we get to see Deadpool and his new team go place to place after Maestro destroys timelines, seeing the brutal wake of Maestro rage. Then the team has their first run-in with Maestro. The team barely gets out alive. Maestro's vicious and has just no chill. Deadpool realizes what he has to do. The only one who can take down the Hulk. Battle of the Ages. A classic duel between 2 titans of Marvel comic history. Deadpool then arrives at the time of the events of X-Men Days of Future Past. Deadpool tells the team to stay behind though, because this is personal. After this, we see Deadpool try to recruit Wolverine. Wolverine has no idea who this guy is, so his first instinct is to kill the guy dressed in red with swords and guns. There's an absolutely wild fight between the two. At the end of the fight, they're both laying on the ground missing limbs. While on the ground, Deadpool does what he does best, and he begins to run his mouth to try to get Wolverine to help. But then Deadpool realizes what movie he's in. Deadpool tells Wolverine that this is going to help restore some timelines. Wolverine is confused for a moment, but then thinks Deadpool is talking about his current time travel-esque mission, so he agrees. Then we move on to Wolverine joining the team. Now, the full team is assembled. After another 20-ish minutes of them searching for Maestro, we arrive at our final battle. The battle takes place at a destroyed castle, seemingly owned by a previous variant of Maestro. The team fights Maestro, and it's awesome. We see huge action as these fan-favorite characters take on this warmongering variant of the Hulk. But the team isn't strong enough. Maestro's winning when Mobius steps in and tells Deadpool that he's brought help. And then, we Avengers Endgame. No, like, seriously. But this time, it's with all the characters from the Fox X-Men universe. We see them all flood in through the TVA portals. Deadpool is ecstatic, his movie is bringing it all together, he loves it, he's the center of attention. And As I'm writing this, I just noticed that Nando and I have a very similar final act to this movie. That's okay. This is different in like every other way, and his video is like just all around better. But it's fine. I'm not gonna change it. That's a lot of work, and two people can have the same idea, I guess. Anyways, the battle is great. It's glorious. The fight ends with the X-Men killing Maestro and saving the other timelines. Deadpool thanks everybody for the help, but most specifically Wolverine, and he watches as they all go back to the X-Men universe as Deadpool stays behind with Mobius in the MCU. Mobius asks if there's anything Deadpool needs before he's permanently brought into the sacred timeline, and Deadpool thinks for a moment, then says that he's gonna need one thing. We then cut to see Deadpool's apartment from the second film. Deadpool walks in with Mobius and sees Vanessa. Deadpool looks at Mobius and points to Vanessa. Mobius smiles and nods, then Deadpool tells Vanessa what's happening. The movie ends with Wade and Vanessa sitting in their new apartment together, moving in boxes to the empty room. Deadpool takes a new suit from a box. It's a crappy homemade suit with a really shiny black material on the sides, and the closing shot is of Deadpool running across the rooftops, then diving off of one thinking he's super cool to be in the MCU now, and this is all clearly becoming a parody of the ending of No Way Home.